G'day guys, I've just returned from the WTC 2025 where I was captain of Team Australia and it was an absolute trip of a lifetime. It was so much fun, there was so much awesome 40k, and I also got an opportunity to do a little bit of travel through Europe, so I decided what I'd do is put together a vlog for you guys showcasing every single aspect of the trip. Everything from the travel that we took to get there, the prep that we did as a team, the event itself, the singles event beforehand, the War Masters, the opening ceremony with the fireworks display, every round of the WTC, and then I spend the last portion of the video reviewing and analyzing our results, talking a little bit about Teams 40k, my philosophy behind it, why it's so amazing, and how you can get involved in Teams 40k yourself. So it's a very long video. This is probably, of all of the things I've produced, what the most work has gone into, so I really do hope you enjoy it. And with that being said, let's get stuck into the video.
Look for the blood god.
G'day guys, and welcome to Leoben, Austria. Team Australia landed last night and we've got today as a gap between the event and our flight to sort of have an explore of the town. We've checked into our accommodation and we're going to have a look around, so let's go. One of the first things that jumped out to me almost immediately is just how scenic this place is. Like, that's our accommodation right near the town centre in Leoben, and like, have a look at the views around this joint. We've got awesome rivers, mountains in the background, you know, mountains on both sides. Like, you feel like you're surrounded in this like sort of private little nature valley. It's fucking awesome. So we landed in Vienna and we had to hire some cars and drive down to Leoben, which was a bit of a hike. It was about an hour and a half in the car, maybe a little bit longer, but it was absolutely stunning scenery the whole way. Every single bridge we went over, stunning views. It's truly a magical, beautiful place. So highly recommend Austria so far, even just from the limited experience I have, you know, checking out the place. Even just exploring little paths through the little woods and forests that surround the accommodation is absolutely stunning. Takes you right up close to the river here. Beautiful views. What a fucking ripper. The locals here are also super nice. Last night the team went out for dinner to a bar that was established in 1619, so a really, really old establishment. And I had the schnitzel, which was fantastic, and just kicked back, and you know, there's just good vibes all around. So here we are at the town centre, and one of my favourite things about European holidays is just checking out the stunning architecture. We don't have anything like this in Australia because everything in Australia is so new. Checking out all these old buildings is an absolute highlight for me already. The town centre is also a real short walk from our accommodation, so I'm going to have a quick look around, head back to the accommodation, grab the boys, and then we're going to head down to the venue and have a look around the space that we're going to be playing at for the WTC. Hey guys, here we are at the venue for the WTC. Let's have a look inside. G'day guys, here we are at the hall for the WTC. This is the venue that is going to host the World Championships and the War Masters, and as you can see, it's absolutely massive, gorgeous venue. absolutely dripping with WTC banners. Let's have a look around. We've also got this Ripper little repair station set up by the army painter, so that any damages that you have during the event can be repaired, and if there's anything that you have that's not battle ready, you can get it battle ready, or if you want to, do a little bit of painting between rounds, you can. Which is a really nice feature that I really like to see at tournaments, is that sort of, that care given to players and their armies, and understanding the challenges players might have at tournaments and putting the tools in place to support. There's even little tufts here that people can use if you want to put tufts on your army. So really cool, and also a great way to test out the army painter's stuff so that you can then decide if it's something that you would like to purchase for your own collection. Siren Games is your absolutely go-to spot for Warhammer 40k in Vienna. It's a relatively small store, but I was blown away by the absolute sheer amount of stock they were able to fit within those shelves. They had floor-to-ceiling shelves, deep, full of stock, every paint colour you can imagine, tons of 40k kits, and then with a short trip downstairs you're treated to even more stock, absolutely cram-packed full, massive range. And then further to the huge range that they had on stock, they also had a small area where you could do practice games or even a very small tournament if you had a handful of mates that needed to settle who's boss. Absolutely ripper store, highly recommend you check it out. Alrighty guys, the WTC is in full swing. Let's flip the camera and have a look at the event itself. So we've done a fair bit of coverage of the Team Australia rounds, but let's have a look at what's going on elsewhere. We've got some absolutely ripper shirts representing the teams. As you can see over here, we've got the streaming set up for War Games Live. So they do a ripper thing where they've got the camera up here. They can see all 8 tables and the high quality streaming setup over there. So if you want to check that out, right now we've got what looks like Team Ireland versus Team Latvia. So that's cool. Then the next set of streamers we have over here is, I believe, the French War Game. So we got them versus, I'm not sure who that is, but really cool shirts. What team are you guys?
Finland.
Finland. Love the shirts.
Thanks.
I might try and get my hands on one of those. So Finland versus France. Then over here, so I'm just trying not to get in everybody's way. We've got the Contact Lost stream. So they've got a similar-ish setup to the Risky Rollers, maybe a little bit less sophisticated. And that's Poland versus what's that, Greece, I think. Then over here we have the German stream. I'm not sure what that one's called, but they've got a pretty nifty setup as well with ISO cameras and stuff. The lads having a good time. And we got Germany versus Norway, I think that is. So that's the, and then there's one more stream down the back here. I think this is a, I'm not sure who that's. Oh, that's the Swedish stream down the back there. So we got Team Sweden versus Team. Oh, that's Team Norway there. Northern Ireland. Team Northern Ireland. They're cool shirts as well. So we've got. Hey, I remember you. Fucking. It's good seeing the old faces from previous years. The returning members. It's really good. Got some referees delegating there. Who else? What other spicy rounds have we got here? The Team Belgian shirts, they're really cool shirts. Team England shirts, really good. Team Italy over here. What do we got? Team, what's that, Bulgaria? Team Chechnya. I like the Netherlands shirts, the orange. I like the way they've got the white and the orange for the coaches and the black and orange for the players. That's cool. Makes it a little bit easier to know what's going on. Because sometimes when you've got players flooding the area with coaches flooding the area, it can be a bit hard. We've got our mates from Team Cyprus here from last round versus Team Norway. What else have we got? We got... yeah, that's more or less a summary of the space. Let's lift the camera up high and have a look around. So many nerds having so much fun. The WTC is truly a fantastic experience that I highly recommend. If you have the capacity to, make sure you get involved. Whether you be an Australian or from any other country for that matter, reach out to your team, see how you can get involved, even if it is from the perspective of a coach, because you will absolutely love it. It's so much fun. And as you can see, like, everyone's having a great time. There's no arguments, there's no screaming at each other, there's no, no poor sportsmanship. It's very high level and high standard of sportsmanship at the WTC. Because you're representing your nation, you've got coaches and referees available. It's very easy to make sure that everything is done correctly. And that's one of the main things that makes the WTC so special, is just that level of care that goes into making sure that everybody has a good time. So yeah, I'll check back with you guys later.
G'day everybody, I'm here with Dean Sinbeck, captain of Team Australia. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Dalton. How are you?
Yeah, pretty well. So you're not playing this week, so what are you doing this week?
So this week I will be participating as a non-playing captain for Team Australia, which basically means making sure that everybody's doing what they need to do, including the coaching team, the players, make sure everyone's got the support that they need, and then also liaising with referees, judges, organisers, that sort of thing, just to make sure that the entire experience is as seamless as possible.
Fantastic. And this is your third WTC.
It is indeed.
What's your favourite thing about the event?
It has to be the community. Like the community local in Australia that rallies behind Team Australia is fantastic, and then also that international community. I've got friends now that I look forward to catching up with every year as we come over here that you only get to see at the WTC. Relationships I've built with the organisers. The community aspect of it has to be my favourite part.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for making the time to come and see us here. Good luck with the rest of the team this week. We'll hopefully catch every round of that right here on stream.
Sounds good.
G'day everyone, I'm here with Reese Cunningham from Team Australia. How you doing?
Not too bad, not too bad.
That's good. So Reese, what are you playing this week?
I'm playing Sisters, Champions of Faith.
Oh, sick. It's a bit of a different pick. Why are you excited about Sisters? What's cool about that?
Morven's a house, she's great, and 30 Sacristans with hospitals is great.
as it turns out, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Now this is your second WTC, I believe?
Yeah, second.
Fantastic.
Played Sisters last time as well, so...
Yeah, you know what you're doing then?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So what's your favourite thing about the event? What do you like about coming here?
Meeting all the people, right? Like, it's great, like, all these different countries, and doing the shirt swaps, got some sick shirts.
That's true. Shirt swaps are always fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Reese. I'm sure we'll catch you on stream at some point during the week.
Yep.
Thanks so much for coming and seeing me here, and good luck with the rest of your games today.
Thank you so much.
All right, g'day everybody. I'm here with Callum German from Team Australia.
Hello.
So, welcome. Why don't you tell us a bit about what you're playing this week?
I am on the loved by all Imperial Knights. Yep, everyone loves Knights at the moment.
Yeah. What sort of list is it?
Look, I'm running 5 bigs with a Castellan, which not many people have.
Yeah,
it's a
pretty spicy pick. Definitely keen to see how that goes this week.
Yep.
What do you like about the list? Why is it something that's cool to play?
Look, Knights are fun. It's big mech things running through buildings. It's it's thematic. But can't wait to put the army away at the moment.
That's very fair. And now this is, again, it's your second WTC, right?
It is my second
time here?
Yep.
What's your favourite thing about this event?
Just meeting everyone else from the other countries. Like, most of the people we play are absolutely lovely chaps.
Absolutely,
have a great time playing everyone here. That's probably the best thing. Also getting to travel.
Yeah, fair enough. No worries. Well, thank you so much, Callum. Good luck in all of your rounds today. And we will catch you hopefully on the table on stream at some point this week.
Oh, well, we're here all week, so you probably will. See ya.
G'day everybody, I am here with Jordan Barrison from Team Australia. So Jordan, why don't you tell us a bit about what you're playing this week?
I'm playing Death Guard Virulent Vectorium.
Virulent Vectorium, so not the Mortarian's host.
No, less popular.
Less popular, but they're pretty cool. What gets you excited about playing Death Guard? What's cool?
It's not a lot of models. It's easy to move around. Don't hurt my back, and it's pretty reliable. So there's no feels bad moments. For the
That's
most
good.
Part. Yeah.
Not for you anyway.
Not usually.
No, cool. And then we're here at the WTC. This is your second WTC?
Second WTC.
What's your favourite thing about this event? Why is it cool?
The best part about this is like the competitive nature, the teams, getting everything together, the organisation, the build-up, everything about like the lead up to the event and the organisation is just great fun. It's great to see, and it's a good time.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Jordan. I'm sure we'll catch you on the stream table at some point this week during our coverage of Team Australia. Thank you for coming on here. Good luck in all of your rounds today, and we'll catch you on the table.
Cheers.
Good day, everybody. I'm here with Lachlan Rigg from Team Australia. How you doing?
Hey.
So, Lockie, what are you running this week?
Blood Angels, taking Space Marines Blood Angels, full melee pressure. If you like melee, I've got all of it.
Lots of Sengard, lots of Blade Guard vets.
Yep, 3 units Sangard, 3 units Blade Guard vets, Death Company, Salt and Cesses, JPI, Doshbang.
Yeah, it's just the old run forward, hit them with 26.
Yeah, there's a little bit of nuance behind it, but effectively there is a lot of pointy sticks. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. And why are you excited about this? What's cool about Blood Angels?
Combat.
Lots of combat
Yeah.
tricks all over the place.
Combat tricks, movement tricks, charges, heroics, everything about the movement side of the game. That's the important part of the game for me.
Yeah, sweet. And now this is your second WTC, I believe.
Yep, second.
Yes. And so, what's your favourite thing now? It's the second one here. What's your favourite thing about WTC? About the event?
Just the experience that there's 40 plus countries here. It's looking over the room now. It's it's an amazing atmosphere. You don't really experience in 40k any other way. Been to WCW, that was it feels different. It feels much different.
Fair enough, yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming and seeing me here. Hopefully we'll have you on stream one of these rounds. And good luck all the rest of your rounds today.
Pleasure. Cheers.
G'day everybody, I'm here with Jeremy Martino from Team Australia. How you doing today?
Yeah, good, Dalton. How are you, mate?
Yeah, doing pretty well. Definitely excited to be here.
Very much so.
Yeah. Now, what are you playing this week?
This week I'm playing Creations of Bile, a little bit different from the list I played at ATC. So we've got, mainly it's built around 30 Possessed, and I've got Rodigus in the list. So
Nice.
he's been featured in a lot of Chaos Knights lists lately, and Demons, of course.
There's definitely a lot of him here, but
yeah, there's a lot of
CSM is an interesting
Rodigus.
pick for
I think
him.
I might be the only CSM list with Rodigus.
Yeah.
So he's just adds chunk factor to that already chunky list.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now, this is your, I believe, similar to Soli, this is your 4th WTC and 5th if you include the ETC?
Yep.
Yeah, fantastic. So what do you like about the WTC? What keeps you coming back year after year?
I think the WTC is, like, obviously it's the premier event, teams event in the world. I also think it's just the vibe here is, unless you've been, and obviously, you know, like there's the singles event that comes before the War Master. It's just such a, like, kind of electric vibe where you've got people from all around the world, people that kind of know of or know each other that are kind of socializing, that would normally see each other across the screen or a Discord or whatever it might be. So it's just lovely to see everyone together. So just a really kind of high energy electric vibe, and some of the most like chill games you'll ever have. So like, you know, there's that kind of like maybe like perception that it's the world champs, so it's going to be really angsty and there's going to be a lot of like, you know, really kind of anal kind of measurements and all that kind of things. It's not really like that at all. It's just very, very communicative. People are very like charitable in the way that they play. So you'll be playing at the highest level and simultaneously playing some of the, you know, most like good faith gentlemen you'll ever play. So I really like that about it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for making the time to come and chat with
Thanks,
us here. Hopefully we'll catch you on our stream table at some point this week.
Yeah, well, keen as.
Yeah, awesome. So thank you very much and good luck in the rest of your games
Thank
today.
you. Cheers.
G'day everybody, I'm here with Greg McGinnity from Team Australia. How you doing?
Fantastic, mate. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, what are you playing this week?
I'm on T-Suns on Warp Mill Pack, on a more primary pressure version of the T-Suns army.
Yeah, cool. And what's cool about T-Suns? Why are you excited about playing that?
T-Suns are in a good spot at the moment, right? There's a lot of damage. Some would say like infinite damage.
Yep.
In the T-Suns. But my version of the army leans away from that a bit. It leans much more into the kind of gameplay aspects of it. Has more kind of tactical pieces.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. I'm definitely keen to see it at some point this week. It's a different take on T-Suns to what a few of the lists are bringing this weekend.
Only what build at the event. So.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Now, this is your first WTC, I believe?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, cool. So, what are you enjoying about it? What's your favourite thing about the WTC?
The atmosphere here has been totally different to any other tournament I have been to. Everybody is in a great mood. Everybody is super social, super chatty, and just like mixing with some of the other countries has just been phenomenal. Loved it so far.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, yeah, thank you for coming on here. Thank you for making the time for me. Hopefully we'll catch you on our stream table at some point this week playing your T-Suns, and good luck for all your games for the rest of the week.
Thank you very much, mate.
Thank you, mate.
Perfect.
G'day, everybody. I'm here with Jordan McGregor from Team Australia. How you doing?
Yeah, very well. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. Now, Jordan, tell us a bit about what you're playing this week.
I'm playing Chaos Knights, so I am on Infernal Lands, running 5 big knights and 2 little knights. Like 2 carnivores, 2 Gatling Squadra, a Rampager, and an Abominant.
That sounds cool. And why is it a cool list? What are you excited about playing with it?
I've always enjoyed playing Chaos Knights. I'll be honest, I'm not, big knights aren't my first choice, but they're just pretty good. So, you can kind of use towering, walk through walls, and all the game rules.
Yeah.
Kind of do whatever you want to do. And there's just, some pretty good archetypes at the moment. They're doing quite well, so it's just something that makes sense for the team, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, this is your first WTC, I believe.
Correct, yeah.
Well, what are you enjoying about the event so far? What's got you excited about the WTC itself?
I think it's been great meeting people. Like, everyone's been so lovely, just really enjoyable games. I've always been big on the social side of this, and just like having a good experience that I enjoy the most. So, and so far it's delivered. Everyone's been super lovely. So, yeah,
that's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for making the time to come and join me here. Good luck in your rest of your rounds. I'm sure we'll catch you on our stream table at some point during the week. Thank you so much, and good luck for the week.
See you later.
G'day, everybody. I am here with Stuart Trainer from Team Australia. How are you doing this morning?
Very well, thank you. It's currently day 4 of the event, so
it is indeed.
Everyone's a little bit tired, everyone's a bit slower, but we've got 2 more games today with the winner. Hopefully get some small wins under our belt.
Yeah, fantastic. Alrighty, now, what is your role here, Team Australia, this week?
This week I am a coach for Team Australia, so I'm doing a lot of the setting up tables, just assisting the players, making sure that they're mentally ready to go into their games, prepping them beforehand. And also I'm the primary FAQ and rules person to come to. So if there's any questions that come up during the round, I've got all the FAQs with me, and I just basically search and find the ruling and then give that to a judge, so it's ready and presented so that they can actually implement that into the game.
That's really important too, because there's so many FAQs and layers and things to the game at the moment that having someone whose dedicated job it is to find all those, rather than putting the onus on the players at the table to do it.
Exactly. We don't want the players to be thinking about spending 10 minutes of their clock looking for some arbitrary rule that kind of matters in the game. So we want them just to focus on the actual macro and micro level of the game, making sure they're making the best decisions possible. Having played in a lot of Australia level team events, that's really important. It's to be able to know that that's behind you. So
yeah, that's fantastic. And this is your first WTC?
This is my first WTC.
Yeah.
It's been amazing so far.
Yeah.
So hopefully it's not going to be my only WTC, but we'll see.
Yeah, awesome. And if you had to pick a favourite thing, what's been your favourite thing about the event so far?
I think it's just what the event represents. It's just having spoken to some of the people that founded WTC and what they were trying to build, where it's just bringing all the nations together and absolutely. We all love this game. We all want to be, the best we can be at this game, and they exemplify these values that I think are so core to what we all strive for, and seeing it actually in person when you hear it's something else. So
yeah,
I would say that.
It really is, and that's fantastic. Thank you so much for making the time to come and have a chat with us, Stu, and good luck in the rest of the rounds today.
Thank you.
G'day everybody, I'm here with Adam Batista from Team Australia. How you doing?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, doing pretty well. It is good to be here. Good to see so much 40k being played.
There's definitely a lot of that going on right now.
There's 1 or 2 games in the hole. So, what's your role here with Team Australia this week?
So I'm one of the coaches. So I've been helping out a lot with accommodation and driving, transport.
You've been our logistics man.
Logistics. I've been helping Dean with the coaching stuff, captain stuff, going to meetings, things like that. So just sort of like an all-rounder, just sort of filling out, doing what I need to do to help out. Yeah.
Oh, look, you've been a constant fighter around the team, providing support and stuff all week. So it's been fantastic, and you've been key in organising everything to get everyone here. So this is your second WTC, yeah?
That's correct. I came last year.
Yeah, and it was fantastic to have you here last year as well. What is it about WTC that makes it so special? What do you enjoy so much about it?
Well, I find teams format's the best format. I enjoy it. I enjoy being part of a team. It's just more fun than singles. I think it means something more. And this is the highest level of teams you can get. You're representing your country. It's an amazing experience. You get to meet people from all over the world that you never see. I'm from Perth, so I never see anyone from my own country, let alone other countries. So yeah, it's just an amazing experience. I would recommend it.
Yeah, fantastic, and yeah, it really is. Well, thank you so much for taking some time to come and chat with us here, and good luck for the rest of the rounds.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Yeah.
G'day everybody, I'm here with Sam Lemon from Team Australia. How you doing?
Very well, thank you. How are you as well?
Yeah, doing very well as well. It is great to have you on here. Now, what's your role here at Team Australia this week?
Yeah, so I'm one of the coaches here in Team Australia for this year's WTC. So just helping out the players, supporting them during their rounds, and being the best water boy I can be.
That's fantastic. And how are you enjoying it so far?
It's been fantastic. This has been an event I've been looking forward to since I started playing 40k again, and it's been a dream come true. So it's been amazing, but the best event I've been to ever.
That's fantastic. And if you had to pick one thing to be your favourite thing about the WTC, what would it be?
Oh, just the camaraderie and sportsmanship, and just meeting people who I've talked to online for years and years and years. It's people I've been talking to and discussing Warhammer 40,000, all our lists and ideas for years, and it's great to finally meet them face to face and exchange dice, exchange beers, and having a great time.
It really is fantastic. Well, thank you so much for making the time to come and have a chat with us, and good luck with the rest of the round.
No worries, thank you very much.
G'day everybody, I'm here with Lockie Callahan from Team Australia. How you doing?
Good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, doing pretty well. It's great to have you here. Now tell us a little bit about what your role is this week with Team Australia.
Well, I'm here as coach this week, and it's my kind of role is I'm helping with pairings, obviously playing War Masters, I get a bit of insight with armies and how people are playing them. So yeah, then just helping the players out where I can. And, it's obviously an intense tournament, so all the help gets us the win.
Yeah, and getting all that support behind the players, making them feel like they've got support there is really important for the games. Yeah. So this is your first WTC, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, fantastic. How are you finding the event so far?
It's really good. Even though it's considered the most competitive tournament, everyone's so nice. It's always good fun. Everyone's trading shirts and getting to meet new people, and you got all cultures of all countries in one room. So it's good fun. Everyone's united by Warhammer. So
yeah, it really is fantastic.
The game. So,
yeah. If you had to pick a favourite thing, what would you say that would be?
There's been a few favourite things, but I think just meeting all the people that you kind of see on streams, podcasts, and just all the new people. Everyone's so lovely. I think that's been my favourite thing.
Yeah.
Everyone's so interested. Love to hear about what Warhammer's like in your country, or just get to know you. So that's what I've been loving.
Yeah, and it's been an absolutely phenomenal experience. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come and chat with us here, and good luck in the rest of the rounds.
Cheers. Thanks, mate.
G'day, everybody. I'm here with Matthew Morrisoli from Team Australia. How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Really excited to get kicked off and get into it, man.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, what are you running this week?
I am playing the terribly boring 40 Necromoria Awakened Dynasty list.
Very good. And it sounds like you're exceptionally excited to be playing that this week.
Look, mate, if I can be honest, I can't think of anything more fun than reanimating Necromorias for 7 rounds of 40k. It's going to be great.
Yeah, it sounds fantastic. Now, this is your fifth WTC or fourth and an ETC?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. And so you've definitely been to a few of them. What's your favourite thing about WTC and about the event?
Yeah, look, it's just really, it's the best tournament in the world, right? You go to a GT, and when you're a high-level player, you'll often play a few players that are worse than you, a few players that are about as good as you, and normally one player that's better than you. But here, every round, every opponent is just really, really good. Even on the weakest teams, people go in thinking, we'll just beat our Tier 4 team and win. Tier 4 teams get wins. Tier 3 teams get wins in the pod, like it's very common. The level of competition is just crazy. It's amazing. Obviously, you add to that, you're bringing a group of people that have worked together for a really long time into that event. It's special in the way that no other event really is.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for making the time out to join me here. Hopefully we'll have you on stream at some point to watch you reanimate Necron Warriors for 3 hours straight.
I'll get my toes out, mate. Can't wait.
Thank you so much, and good luck with all your games this week. I'm sure we'll catch you around.
Thanks, you, mate. Man. Cheers.
G'day guys, here we are live at the first round of the WTC, Team Australia versus Team Cyprus. Let's go have a look at the games. Alright, over here we've got a couple coaches on duty. We got Jordan Beresford playing his Death Guard into Chaos Knights on the Risky Rollers stream. So make sure you tune in and check that game out in detail because there's some really spicy stuff happening there. We got Lockie One Leg Rig on his Blood Angels into their Chaos Demons, these big scary gribblies. Then we've got Greg Maginity, Thousand Suns into World Eaters. This is actually an interesting match. Greg and I played this practice game the other day, so we know what's happening there. Let's jump over onto this side, get out of Jordan McGregor's way.
So worried. 9-inch charge.
Ooh, we've got a 9-inch charge coming. So we've got Chaos Knights into Space Marines, I believe they're Space Wolves. We've got Mr. Martino himself playing with his Creations of Bile into their Emperor's Children. Then let's head down this way. We've got Sam, we've got Lockie Callaghan. Callaghan, say g'day.
Hey!
Coaching away. What have we got here? We've got Chaos, Imperial Knights, into what looks like Thousand Suns. Then we've got Reese Cunningham rocking his Sisters of Battle into Imperial Knights. Looks like trying to kill something. Looks like a big slog happening in the middle there. Stewie Trainer and the coaches from Cyprus having a chat. We've got Matt, the athlete, Morrisoli, playing his Necron Warriors into their Death Guard. And then we have the spare table, which has currently been relocated for the stream games. Alright, so that's where we're at in terms of pairings. As you can see, we've got this side of the room, but there's the whole event happening behind us there. A whole ton of people having a ton of fun, playing some awesome games of 40k. Pairings went pretty well for us. Yeah, we're pretty happy with it. And we've got a few of our scores that are going up. So we're playing Supply Drop this round, and we're playing Tipping Point. And quite a few of our players got second turn, which is a huge advantage in this mission. And also quite a few of our players have the remaining objective as their safe objective. So some really, really good luck on that. But we do have a couple games that are quite questionable.
2 hours left in the round.
And we got 2 hours.
Left in the round.
Alright guys, so I'll hit you guys back when we've got some more results to share. But Team Australia's looking strong start. Alrighty, g'day guys. Here we have the end of the first round. Team Australia versus Team Cyprus. Absolute ripper of a round. And I've got some scores here for you. So Matt Marasoli played into the Death Guard and got a 19-1. Big win for Matt Marasoli. Jeremy Martino into their Emperor's Children. Got a 20-0. Big win for him. Reese played his Sisters Battle into their Imperial Knights and got a 14-6, so a big win. The game was looking a bit shaky at a few points, but there were some huge swings in it, which is good to see. Lockie Rigg got a 19-1 with his Blood Angels into their Chaos Demons. So again, another really, really big win for Team Australia. Lockie Rigg bringing it home. Callum German with his Imperial Knights into their Thousand Suns player. He also got a 19-1, so yet again, big scores for Team Australia. Jordan Beresford, 19-1 with his Death Guard into their Chaos Knights, and that one was up on the Risky Rollers stream, so make sure you check that out. Really cool game. Greg Maginity got a 13-7 with his Thousand Suns into their World Eaters, so another win for Australia. And then Jordan McGregor got a 6-14 loss with his Chaos Knights into their Space Wolves. This was a projected loss though. We expected that to happen, but we had to get that pairing in order to make sure that everybody else got these green matchups and bring home those points. So that rounds out the first round of the WTC. Team Australia got a total of 129 out of the available 160 battle points. So that's a very sizable win, a very strong start to the event. I'm super proud of the boys and what we were able to get done in this round. If we can ride this momentum, we're looking real good. So with that being said, we've got a fireworks display that's about to kick off, which is fucking cool. And then we're gonna do a big barbecue dinner, head back to the accommodation, do some data, have a bit of a chat, and get ready for the next round. So that rounds out the first day of the WTC. And I will hit you guys back tomorrow when we get stuck into Slovakia. G'day guys, here we are, round 2 of the WTC 2025, Team Australia versus Team Slovakia. Let's flip the camera and have a look at the games and get updates. Alright, we got the stream game here, Matt Marasoli with his Necrons into their Tyranids. Risky Rollers doing their thing. Make sure to jump over and check them out. Got Sam being a lovely coach. We've got Jordan McGregor here with his Chaos Knights into a Chaos Knight mirror match. Always a spicy game, always a fast game. We've got Jeremy Martino here with his Creations of Bile into a beautifully painted Necrons army. Really gorgeous. We've got Lockie Rigg's Blood Angels here going into some Death Guard. We've got Reese Cunningham, Sisters of Battle, playing into Eldari. We've got Callum playing his Imperial Knights into a Grey Knights army. Then we've got Jordan over here playing his Death Guard into an Imperial Knights army. Spicy matchup there. And then we've got Greg over here playing his Thousand Suns into Astra Militarum. This is actually a matchup that they did during War Masters, and then they got paired into each other, which is always interesting to see. And that is the round. So that's everyone who's playing. We got some pretty good results with our pairings process. We're looking strong, and a few of the games have spiked up from what we were predicting as well. So I'm very, very happy with the way that this round is going, and it's looking like it's going to be a decent sized win, provided we don't have any, nasty surprises, which, you never know. It is the WTC. So I will check back with you guys after the round is done and update you on the results. Alright, g'day guys. We've just started our third round of the WTC, but I thought I'd take a moment to update you on the results from our second round, which was into Team Slovakia. So Team Australia got a big win here. I'll go through the individual pairings now. So we have Matt Morosoli on his Necrons play into their Tyranids. This was the stream game that you could watch on the Risky Rollers live stream of the WTC, and he got a draw, a perfect 10-10. Then we had Jeremy, his Creations of Bile, played into the Necron Slovakia player and got a 16-4 win, so a big win for Jeremy. Reese Cunningham on his Sisters of Battle got a 16-4 into their Eldari, so another big win. Then we had Callum German on the Imperial Knights, played into, where are we here? Grey Knights and got a 20-0 win. We had Lockie Rigg on Blood Angels, got a 14-6 win into their Death Guard. We had Jordan Beresford running our Death Guard list, playing into the Imperial Knights and got an 18-2, another big win. We had Greg Maginity on his Thousand Sons into their Astra Militarum, got a 13-7 win. This was the matchup that was a repeat of the one that they played in the War Masters, so that was really exciting to see. And then Jordan McGregor got a 20-0 with his Chaos Knights into the opponent's Chaos Knights. So as you can see, quite a few very big wins in there. There were some really interesting moments. One that I witnessed was with Jordan McGregor and his Chaos Knights in the mirror match. There was one instance where Jordan had one of his big knights out the front. The opponent sent a bunch of shooting from his big knights into it to soften it up, then sent a carnivore in, hoping that it would kill it in melee, but it failed to kill it. And then the Atropos or whatever it was that he was attacking fought back, killed the carnivore. Then it ticks over to Jordan's turn, and Jordan was able to send that knight out and kill another big knight. So that was a huge swing. The opponent was expecting to have a carnivore and a big knight, but instead Jordan still had his big knight and his opponent had neither of his pieces. That's what blew that one out into a 20-0. There was some really spicy moments in the stream game as well, so make sure you go check that out. The archive footage is still there, so you can go watch that game retrospectively, because obviously the time difference is a bit much for us Aussies. But yeah, all in all, absolutely fantastic round. The team are absolutely stoked with the results. We've just paired into Norway, so I'm going to give the team a moment to get settled into their games, and then I'll hit you guys with a live update on the happenings here in round 3. So yeah, I'll check back with you guys soon. G'day guys, here we are midway through round 3 of the WTC for 2025, Team Australia versus Team Norway. Let's flip the camera and have a look at some games. So we've got Jeremy Martino here on the stream game versus the, he's playing his CSM versus their Blood Angels. Very spicy game here. On the Risky Rollers stream, make sure to check the links out in the description and follow along. Then here we've got Cal running his Imperial Knights into Kettle and his Astra Militarum. Exciting game there. We've got Reese Cunningham with his Sisters of Battle playing into Imperial Knights. Interesting looking match here. We got Lockie Rigg over here playing his Blood Angels into some Death Guard. Over here we've got Greg playing his Thousand Sons into a bright blue and pink Chaos Knight army. Got Jordan Beresford over here, Death Guard, into pretty gnarly Tyranid list. Looking very cool. We got Geordie running his Chaos Knights into some Thousand Sons. Looks like he's pushing up quite aggressively there. It's good to see. And then we've got the worst matchup ever, Matt Morosoli in the Necron mirror match. So
this is the most miserable game in the entire event.
Nobody likes the Necron's mirror. Nothing happens. So yeah, so that's where we're at in terms of the WTC for round 3. In total, our pairings was actually kind of interesting. So we had a predicted, I think, around 85 or 86 on the matrix, which isn't a super strong, super dominant pairing. However, if history is going to, indicate the future, our team have been consistently hitting above their predicted values. So I think we're being quite conservative, quite realistic with our expectations, and we are continually exceeding them. So if we can keep that trend up, then this should be a pretty sizable win. But we have the capacity for it to potentially become a relatively close round. So it's going to be really interesting to see here how this one goes. Make sure to tune into the Risky Rollers wherever they are over here and get the live coverage of the event there. And I will hit you guys back with an update. All right, g'day guys. There we have the end of the third round of the WTC and another win for Team Australia. I'm so proud of the boys. Let's have a look at the scores that we got in this round. So we had Matt Morosoli play his Necrons into the Necron, so a mirror match, really ugly game, but Matt was able to pull a 12-8 win out of it, which is fantastic. Jeremy played on the Risky Rollers stream with his Creations of Bile into the Norway Blood Angels, and he went down and got a 7-point loss. Then we had Reese Cunningham playing his Sisters of Battle into their Imperial Knights, and he was able to pull out a 13-7 win, which is really impressive. Really, really good result there from Reese. We had Lucky Rig with his Blood Angels play into their Death Guard, and he managed to pull a 20-0 win, a massive win from Lucky Rig, which is fantastic to see. He's on fire this weekend, absolutely on fire. We had Cal and his Imperial Knights played into Kettle and his Imperial Guard, and got an 11-9 win, which is pretty good. Jordan Beresford playing his Death Guard into their Tyranids, got a 14-6 win. It was looking a bit shaky there. There was one turn when the Shadow of Chaos battle shocked his entire army, so it was real touch and go for a while there, but he managed to pull it back and then really enhance those results, bringing back that 14-point win. Then Greg McGinity, he got a loss. However, it was a 9-11 into their Chaos Knights, and this was a predicted loss. We thought he was going to lose. He basically jumped on this grenade for us, and it was fantastic to see him pull those 9 points out of it. And then the last game was Jordan McGregor's Chaos Knights into their Thousand Suns, and he got an 11-9 win. So that's 6 wins, 2 losses. Really strong result for Team Australia into Norway. And I'm going to find out what Lockie's laughing about in the background there, and I'll hit you guys with an update tomorrow. G'day guys, here we have round 4 of the World Team Championships. Team Australia into Team Sweden. Let's flip the camera and have a look at some game. Alright, we got Matt Morosoli, Necrons, playing into Thousand Suns here. We've got Reese Cunningham drawing some secondaries there, running his Sisters of Battle into Eldari. Over here, we've got Lockie Rig playing his Blood Angels into some Leagues of Votan. Very interesting game. We got Jordan Beresford running his Death Guard into some Chaos Knights, sorry. We've got Jeremy Martino here, just gonna squeeze through, playing his CSM into Khorne Demonkin with the old ruling for the Bloodletters. A very, very cool Khorne Demonkin list. Over here, got McGregor playing his Chaos Knights into Death Guard. And then on the stream table, which the stream is called Viesla, for those who want to join the Swedish stream, we've got Callan German running his Imperial Knights into Sisters of Battle. There's the lads doing the stream there. Really cool little setup that they've got.
That doesn't matter.
And that's the matchups for the round. So this is our first round into a Seed 1 team. Sorry, just going to scooch past some people. So this is our first round into a Seed 1 team. These rounds are always hard. The Seed 1 teams are all strong, some of the strongest players from the strongest nations in the world. And we had a pretty flat matrix into them before the round started, predicting a lot of 10s. And then when the pairings came through, there was a lot of 10-10s that were matched. So it's going to be a really interesting one to watch. I think we've got quite a few that have the capacity to swing up and get 11s, 12s, 13s. But we also have a few that have the capacity to swing down and get those 8s, 9s, etc. So Early signs, unfortunately, are not looking amazing. I just saw Khan the Betrayer kill almost an entire unit possessed on his own. Jeremy just failed all of his invulnerable saves, even threw neg1 to hit from Creations of Isle. So that's a bit rough. And we also had a few games that it was really important that we get the second turn, like our Necrons matchup, for example, where we unfortunately got the first turn. And that can also heavily impact the scores. That can turn a 10 into a 9 or an 8 very, very easily. So not super happy with our current position, but I also have immense faith in my team to rally and pull for those points when needed. They've done it a billion times before, and I have no doubts that they'll be able to do it for us now. So I'm going to head back in there and make sure that I keep everybody updated on the current game state across the board so that they can make informed decisions on whether or not they need to take those risky plays or whether they need to play safe. So I'll check back with you guys at the end of the round, update you on the scores, and wish us luck. All right, g'day guys. That's round 4 of the WTC done and dusted. Team Australia versus Team Sweden with a big win for the Swedes. So really, really exciting and fun round. There was some really interesting games. Let's go through the results now. So we had Matt Morrisoli with his Necrons playing into their Thousand Suns. He got a 10-10 draw. We had Jeremy Martino on his Creations of Bile, got a 4-16 loss into their World Eaters. That Corn Demonkin did some really, really cool tricks that flipped that matchup. Reese Cunningham got a win with his Sisters of Battle, a 13-7 into their Eldari. We had Lockie Rigg also got a win, 12-8 with his Blood Angels into their Leagues of Votan. We had Callum German got a draw, 10-10 into their Sisters of Battle with his Imperial Knights. That one was on the Swedish stream, so for those of you who want to check that out, I'll chuck a link in the description below, so where you can find that. We had Jordan Beresford with his Death Guard, got a 5-15 loss into their Chaos Knights. Greg Maginity with Thousand Suns got a 7-13 into their Space Wolves, so another loss. And then Jordan McGregor with his Chaos Knights into their Death Guard was a 3-17 loss. So it was actually quite interesting. We had Death Guard versus Chaos Knights on 2 different tables. Our Death Guard lost and our Chaos Knights lost. So that's a really interesting, situation where you'd think if the Death Guard beat the Chaos Knights, then our Death Guard should beat their Chaos Knights. But that wasn't how it turned out. There was some truly phenomenal bad luck in a few of those games. Our Death Guard failing all of their 6-inch charges, even with rerolls, for example. And sometimes that happens in 40k, regardless of whether you're playing at a local RTT or if you're playing on the world stage. So it happens to us all from time to time. And the end score was a 64-96 loss for Australia. So that's a pretty decent sized win for Sweden. So fantastic work to them. I'm sure their team put in a ton of effort to prepare for this round, as did we. And the best man came out on top. So we're now playing into Team Belgium, and I will update you guys with those pairings and give you a mid-round update in a moment. G'day guys, round 5 of the WTC 2025 is underway. Team Australia into Team Belgium is happening right now. Let's flip the camera and have a look around. So we've got the Risky Rollers streaming there. We've got Greg with his Thousand Suns versus Liam VSL running Eldari on the stream table here. We can see we've got Adam Batista and Stewie Trainer working hard as coaches. Hey, Stewie. We got Lockie Rigg versus, with his Blood Angels versus Chaos Knights. We've got Matt Morrisoli with his Necrons versus Tyranids in what would be one of the most miserable games imaginable, because it's Tyranid Carpet versus 40 Necron Warriors. I feel sorry for you, mate. You're doing the pairings, what are you talking about? We got Geordie here playing his Chaos Knights into Thousand Suns, and he's locked in a 10-10. That's good to hear. We've got Reese with his Sisters of Battle versing the Necrons. We've got Silent King and some Wraiths all up in Reese's shit. It's not what you want to see. We got Cal with his Imperial Knights. He's versing some Chaos Space Marines there, Accursed Cultists. Then we've got Jordan Beresford over here with his Death Guard going into Blood Angels. with some some judges making a ruling on what looks like piling in. Then we've got Jeremy Martino here with his Chaos Space Marines playing into Death Guard. So another Death Guard versus a combat matchup. I believe that's our Rodigus in the middle that's running up into the center of the board. Very interesting matchup there. And then we have the spare table, which is the stream table. All in all, pretty interesting round, pretty interesting matchups here. Our matrix was pretty flat into Belgium as well, so similar to how it was into Sweden. However, this time we're tracking a lot better. We're looking a lot closer to a draw, top end of a draw, potentially a very small win, depending on how some of these results come in. And but we're a lot more confident this round than we were into Sweden, that's for sure. Into Sweden, the wheels came off really fast early in the round, and then that influenced a bunch of decisions. We had people that were like, well, if those two people that were supposed to win are losing, we need to make risky plays to try to claw it back, and then those risky plays don't pay off, and then you end up sinking even further into the hole. Whereas in this one, we've got the inverse, where it's like, cool, the people that were supposed to win have gone up and they're getting really dominant starts to their games, which means everybody else can kind of relax and just play clean 40k and just bring back your predicted scores. You don't have to take any big risks. And as a result, we're going to probably lock this round in as a draw or a small win. So yeah, I'll check back with you guys when we have more results. Record. It's recording now. Okay. Fuck's sake.
You sure?
It's definitely recording.
Maybe.
Alright, g'day guys, this is take 2. I just recorded this entire thing without hitting record, and the risk rolls are laughing their asses off at me, so let's try that again. We're in round 6. We're against Team Scotland, and I'm going to update you on the results from round 5 versus Team Belgium, and then I'll do a walk around and update you on what's happening here as well. So round 5, Team Belgium, we got a slightly disappointing loss. We were very close to a draw, but there were a few downswings right towards the end of the round that sort of took it away from us. So let's go through the rounds. We had Matt Morosoli playing his Necrons into their Tyranids, got a 12-8. Now this was Gaunt Carpet with a billion Gaunts and Hormagaunts and Gene Stealers versus 40 Necron Warriors reanimating, so it was an absolutely miserable game to watch. But Solly managed to pull that 12-8, which is fantastic to see. Jeremy Martino, Creations of Bile versus Death Guard. This was a really spicy matchup as well. There were some swings and ups and downs throughout the round, but it landed on a 10-10 draw for Jeremy. And then we had Reese, Sisters of Battle, playing into their Necrons, and Reese got his first loss of the event. It's unlike Reese to lose a game, so that's disappointing to see, but he did give it his all, and you got to commend that. Then we got Lockie Rigg, got a loss, his first loss for the event as well. 7-13 loss into their Chaos Knights. Callum German got an 18-2 win with his Imperial Knights into their Chaos Space Marines. So massive win for him. I checked in on that game several times, and every single time I went over there, it was just the Chaos Space Marine army was just disappearing piece by piece, and he still had all of his big knights for the majority of the game. So really dominant win there, which really helped out because the team was struggling. Then we got Jordan Beresford, got a 7-13 loss with his Death Guard into their Blood Angels. We had Greg Maginity on stream on the Risky Rollers channel, so if you want to check out that game in its totality, you can find it there. He played his Thousand Sons into Liam VSL's Eldari. He got a 3-17 loss. However, Liam had 20'd all of his previous opponents for this event. So our player was the first one to chip some points away from Liam and just show people that even gods bleed. Then we've got Jordan McGregor as our final score, which was his Chaos Knights into their Thousand Sons, and he got a flat 10-10 draw. So that ended with a 72-88 Austria's way. That's not Austria, Belgium's way. So a win for them. We were 3 points shy of a draw, so it was really close. We gave it our all. Unfortunately, there was some swings last minute that the rest of the team weren't really able to recover from. Sometimes if you have really disappointing swings early in the round, you can inform the players and other players can pick up the slack. But if the whole round you don't have that information and then it swings last minute, there's not much you can really do to save that. So we've all played those games where your opponent gets a massive primary at the end, draws some really brutal secondaries and just gets that 20, 25 points, and it goes from, you know, goes from a 10-10 to an 8-12, and you're just like, I nearly had him. And that's essentially what's happened here. So I'm gonna check in with the team, make sure they've got everything that they need, and then I'll do a whip around and I'll update you on our round into Scotland.
I can get that profitable day with my time.
There you go, you can clean that off. You can clean that off. G'day guys, here we have round 6, Lockie Callaghan coaching, Team Australia into Team Scotland. Let's have a whip around and look at some game. So we've got the stream game, Callaghan's having a fucking ripper of a time. We've got Greg playing his Thousand Suns into a mostly dead Tyranids army at this stage on the Risky Rollers stream, so make sure you check those guys out. We've got Jeremy Martino here playing his Creations of Bile into Innes Wilson's Gene Steel Cult, really spicy matchup there. We've got Lockie Rigg playing his Blood Angels into a Thousand Suns matchup here, another really ripper of a game. Then we've got an empty table. Then we've got Reese Cunningham, Sisters of Battle into Blood Angels. Really, really brutal matchup here. There was a really funny moment just before where Reese pulled off this massively complex charge to play around fights first. And then after he'd finished doing it all, his opponent's like, I don't have fights first. And Reese just mistook it. So that was pretty funny. It was a massive waste of time, but good opportunity for some skill expression anyway. Then we got Cal. Your game's finished, yeah, Cal? Yeah. Yeah, big 20-0. That's all he knows how to do. This cunt doesn't know how to drop a point. So that was Imperial Knights versus Astra Militarum. Then we've got Chaos Knights here versus Death Guards. Looking like a decent win for you two, Geordie? Yeah. So, and then we had a Necron mirror match here. Let's look at this fucking game state. Like, Jesus. This Necron warrior unit, I'll get out of the light, spans all the way across from one safe objective to the other safe objective. And it looks like Solly just successfully body blocked him and prevented him from getting past that line and locked in a decent primary, decent win. I think it was a 15-5 there. Then we got Beresford here. He's playing his Death Guard into what looks like a CSM. We've got a Lord Discordant there. This is a bit more of a scrappy kind of game, but that's fine. We've locked in some pretty decent wins so far. So that's something that's totally fine. So all in all, we're pretty happy with the way that this round is going. We had a pretty strong projection. Even though our matrix was relatively flat, the pairings team did a fantastic job and got us some really favorable matchups. And then our team are delivering on them. And even some of the flatter scores of your projected 10-10s, all of them have sort of spiked upwards. One or two have maybe slightly trended down, but that's totally fine in this situation. So the team have basically had a nice relaxed game where all they have to do is hold to their projection. Nobody has to do any risky moves and push. Nobody has to try to pick up the slack of anybody else. It's just everybody stay the course and we'll be fine. And that's made it a really fun round. The Scottish guys have been an absolute blast. One thing that I'll cut in here is at the start of the round, we had one of the Scottish coaches sucked a big scoop of Vegemite off of Matt Morrisoli's big toe. So that was pretty funny. We're a bit of a superstitious bunch, the Aussies, and that was a really good omen. Soli's toe's a bit of a myth in WTC. We've had captains from multiple teams have sucked his toe as a sort of a blessing, and it always pans out well for us, and this is another example of it working fantastically in our favour. So with that being said, going to end it here, and I'll update you guys at the end of the round. Alrighty guys, so pairings went really well. We've got a projected 90. If we win this round, we've got a really good shot at top 5. So that's what you want to think about while you do it. But even if we don't, I'm really fucking proud of every single person on this team for what we've achieved so far. With that being said, on 3,
1, 2, 3. Aussie, Aussie, Aussie! Cheers, Buster Wendy!
Alrighty guys, here we have the final round of the WTC Team Australia versus Team Netherlands. Let's flip the camera and have a look around. Alright, we got Matt Morrisoli going up against, with his Necrons going up against Drakari on the Risky Rollers stream. If you want to watch this game, links in the description. We've got Jeremy Martino, Chaos Space Marines, going into a 60 Necron Warrior build. So that's going to be interesting to see. Can he kill through them? We've got Greg Maginity here with his 1,000 Suns going into Death Guard to settle which one's the stronger Trader Legion. Over here we got Lockie Riggs Blood Angels going into a yellow Space Wolves army. Very interesting combats happening here. It's looking pretty brutal. Over here we've got Jordan Beresford with his Death Guard going into a Subterranean Assault Tyranids list. Very interesting. We've got a Knights matchup here, Chaos Knights versus Imperial Knights with old mate Jordan McGregor. Then over here we've got Chaos Knights versus Sisters of Battle. It's quite a rough matchup there for Reese, so let's see if he can pull some points out of it. And then we've got Callum German here, 1,000 Suns into Imperial Knights with the Oztropos himself, the Aussie Atropos. So yeah, pretty exciting games there. It's actually a pretty tight round, to be honest. Projected scores were quite good, but some of them vary pretty heavily based on who's going to get first turn. And it's looking like a few of those didn't go our way. But I have full faith in our team to sort of turn those around, and as long as people can stick to those projected scores, we should be fine. So that's been the instructions. Everyone's been told don't play any risky moves, don't do anything crazy, just stick to your projections and we should be fine. So that's the game plan for this round. If we win this, we've got a real shot at top 5, which is fantastic. But even if we lose this, I'm massively proud of what the team has achieved on this trip. We put in a ton of work, had a ton of fun, made a ton of new friends along the way. But let's see if we can land this plane safely into that top 5 position. I'll hit you guys back at the end of the round to let you know how we did. Alright, g'day guys, there we have the end of round 7 and the end of the WTC. Team Australia just went into Team Netherlands and we got a nice big 101 point win. So let's run through the scores now. We got Matt Morrisoli ran his Necrons into Jakari and got a 13-7. We had Jeremy Martino's Creations of Bile got a 12-8 win into Necrons. Sisters of Battle Reese Cunningham got a 2-18 loss into Chaos Knights. He had to jump on that grenade for the team to get their results though. We had Lockie Riggs Blood Angels, big 20-0 win into the Space Wolves. Absolutely brutal game there. We had Callum German, Imperial Knights, 13-7 win into 1,000 Suns. We had Jordan Beresford's Death Guard, 11-9 win into their Tyranids. We had Greg Maginity get a 10-10 draw with his 1,000 Suns into their Death Guard. And we had Jordan McGregor on his Chaos Knights seal it for us with a big 20-0 win against their Imperial Knights. So some absolutely massive wins there, able to bring us that win. So Team Australia went 5 wins, 2 losses, which means we've performed better than we did last year, and it's very much looking like a potential top 5 placing. I'll come back to you guys when we have the final standings. There's a few rounds yet to be submitted, but I wanted to update you on our results from our round. And the energy is high here. Everyone's really stoked with the results. And yeah, I'll check back with you guys later. G'day guys, with WTC 2025 now done and dusted, I'm taking a short break as a holiday to celebrate our results, and I've decided my first stop is going to be the beautiful Croatia, seeing the city of Dubrovnik. And I thought what it might be fun to do is talk about WTC, but with this as a beautiful backdrop. So let's go have an explore of the city. Alrighty guys, so the WTC is now done and dusted. We played 7 rounds of some of the most intense 40k that you'll ever see. It was an absolute blast. Team Australia won 5 out of those 7 rounds and placed 6th overall, which is a result that I'm immensely proud of. We placed 11th last year, 3rd the year before that, 1st the year before that, and 4th the year before that. So it's very good to just re-establish and assert that Australian Warhammer 40k is serious. We have some very talented players, a very strong community, and it's also worth noting that very few of the people from those years where we came 4th, 1st and 3rd were on the team the years that we came 11th and 6th. So it's not like we just have a few at the top that are carrying the team. We actually have a very deep pool of talent, and it's something that we are very proud of, and we work very hard to foster, and we make sure that, you know, people at the top are working closely with those just below them to make sure that we're lifting the quality of everybody in the nation. Fuck, this is a lot of stairs. So that's something we're really proud of, and it's something I'm personally very proud of, that I was able to, you know, take that seed 1 position and defend it for multiple years. The first year that I took captaincy, pretty much the entire team, and this was the year that we came 3rd, pretty much the entire team were going to take a couple years off, and they were just like, yeah, we're not gonna play next year. Some other people can have a turn, and as a result, I took captaincy, and I was like, okay, it's going to be very hard to live up to that standard that has been set. You know, Australia's been established as an absolutely top tier nation, and, you know, maintaining that is not easy. It's no easy feat. So, you know, that was the goal. That was what I set out to do. And I essentially, you know, pulled some strings, called in some favors, got a couple of those outgoing players to return, which formed a core block of the team that was strong. And then I was able to use that core block of strong players to attract other top players from other parts of the country. You know, Australia is a massive country. You know, we had a bunch of people from Western Australia and a bunch of people from Victoria, and it's like the equivalent to flying to another country for most people. It's so far away, which makes practice hard, which makes community orientation hard. But so we roped in some people from there. We also roped in some people from New South Wales, put together a strong team. This is the previous year, and came 11th. And then this year we took largely the same team. I stepped down as a player into a non-playing captain role, which turned out to be one of the best decisions I've made in a long time, because it freed up a spot for us to get another player from New South Wales, Jordan McGregor, who was absolutely fantastic. We also replaced our arguably lowest performing player from the previous year, and got a new player on who was also significantly better. And as a result, the team's strength went way up. We also, as captain, I learned a lot from the previous year, things that we could have done better, that we did do better this year. So we had a stronger, you know, squad of players. We had more preparation, more experience, more understanding, and as a result, this year we were able to pull off that 6th place, which is something I'm very proud of. Some of the things that we did differently this year that might be worth talking about was we had a non-playing captain, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's actually quite impactful. I was able to rapidly respond to challenges, be present so that my players felt supported. I was able to focus on referee liaisons, building relationships with the referees, you know, ensuring that all of the rulings there was a captain present for, to make sure that there was consistency. There was a few times where I was able to sort of point out that the ruling was made like this earlier, so it should be made like this now. And the referees agreed and made it in our favor. Whereas had I not been present, if I had been playing my game myself, may not have been able to do that. So there's just lots of things where it's like, super advantageous having a non-playing captain. Also, in the preparation and the lead up to the event, I was able to focus on getting everybody prepared instead of preparing myself. So I didn't need to play practice games. I didn't need to, focus on all of that sort of stuff. I was able to focus on getting their armies ready for them so that they can play their practice games. I was able to focus on booking things like accommodation, conference rooms, organizing shirts, organizing sponsorship deals, coordinating those payments, organizing transfers to and from the airport. Like, I was able to just focus on all of that administrative bullshit and just tell the players all you need to do. There's one thing you need to do, and that's be a good player. Be the best player you can be. I don't want them wasting their time on anything else. And I couldn't have done that if I was a player as well. I would have needed to either delegate that to somebody or, me sort out me and have each player sort out themselves. And that's not what you want. So, yeah, being the non-playing captain was an amazing win. It was so good. We also had the streamers on side this year. Organising the streamers for the event was really good. It's hard to deny that did come with some advantages, albeit very minor ones. But one of the advantages of having streamers there is that we were in the same area for the duration of the event. Like, we were essentially positioned right next to the air conditioner and didn't have to move around. Normally, as the pairings come out, you'll be paired on this group of tables into this nation, and then the next round you'll be on a different group of tables into a different nation. But because we have the streaming set up and it can't move, we were able to basically have a base camp, which was very, very helpful. Very helpful. Now, that wasn't my intent when I got the streamers, but it was a very happy sort of side effect of having them. So, all in all, very happy with our results and very happy with, the decisions that led to them and what we did to make sure that we got those results. And I look forward to sort of exploring some ideas for next year and seeing what we can cook up. But yeah, I'm gonna continue exploring the city and I'll hit you guys with an update soon when I think of something else to talk about. Alrighty guys, I'm about halfway through my walk through the walls of Dubrovnik, and I thought I'd take a second to grab a seat, grab a drink, and have a bit of a relax, because there's about 850 billion fucking stairs in this joint, and it's I'm a fat cunt and it's quite the ordeal. So I thought I'd take a moment to take a seat, grab a drink, a watermelon spritz, because it's fucking 1 billion degrees as well. And update you guys on maybe talk a little bit about Team Australia's team strategy this year. So there's no surprise that team events are a different beast than singles. And one of the things that separates the high performing teams from the low performing is the team's overall strategy. So you could, in theory, just take your 8 best players, running their 8 best singles lists, and approach the event in that way. Or you could optimize for the things that are different in a team's environment and try to capitalize on those differences as part of your team strategy. So what we did last year is we designed 2 lists that were expressly designed around having specific tables. One of them, which was my list, was designed around taking the really heavy ones with tons of ruins and tons of protected objectives. So I could run my 30 Terminators and I could hop on the objectives and be safe and hold them. And then basically the idea is they wouldn't be able to attack me with shooting armies because they can't shoot me. And if they attack me with combat armies, that's exactly where I wanted them to be, right? So that was the strategy there. And then we would basically do the inverse for a shooting army. We'd design that to take the light tables and be like, cool, you can't hop out onto the objectives because we're just going to shoot you off them, right? So last year we did a lot of what I would call optimization around the mission pack. The challenge that presented though was it kind of locks you in. So for example, I was kind of locked in as the Worldies player as a put up. I designed the list to be put up and it kind of had to be put up because if I don't get my table pick, I kind of just get blown out. And then what would happen is if we put me up, but then they have 2 lists in their lineup that happen to be really good into me regardless of table, you know, like it might be Death Guard, it might be, you know, Fights First, you know, things like that can be a real problem for Worldies at the time. And if they have both of those in their lineup, well now we can't put me up because if we put me up, they're just going to attack with those 2 things and I'm going to lose my game. So it made it really difficult for us to adapt on the fly. The same thing could be said about the shooting lists that we designed as a put up on the shooting table pick, is it's kind of vulnerable to those sorts of things. So what we did this year that was different is we, instead of going for maximal optimization, we went for maximal like fluidity, maximum responsiveness, being able to go, cool, we've got like nothing's locked in, everybody's writing a really strong list. You can have certain matchups that you really like and certain tables that you really like, but nothing is locked in. And then the idea is that once we get to the table, we look at the lineup of the other team, and sometimes we'd be putting up our Blood Angels. Other times we'd be putting up our Imperial Knights. Other times we'd be putting up our Chaos Space Marines, right? Like we would mix it up heavily. And that does a few things that I think contributed to our success this year. One of them was that it made it so that our opponents couldn't predict us. Even if they went and asked our previous round opponents, like, who did Australia put up first? They're gonna get 3 different answers, right? Because we put up somebody different every round. And as a result, it gets really hard for them to predict us. Whereas when we ask their previous opponents, who did they put up first? They tell us the same thing, and then we know who they're very likely to put up first. And then we can adapt that into our pairing strategy, because we know that if that's a put up, they can't use it to pin something. So we can put up something that is vulnerable to the thing that we know that they are going to put up. And as a result, we were able to get a really good results on the pairings, because instead of like maximizing things, we've like optimized for that ability to adapt on the fly. So you can see that in our pairings. I'm not entirely sure, I'd have to look at the numbers, but I don't think we put up the same person more than twice. Like we put up a couple of them twice, but most of the time we would change it and adapt. And that was really, really influential. It also insulates you against making the wrong call. Like if you design a list and you're like, it's gonna be a put up and I'm gonna put it up on these tables, and then turns out that somebody in the meta has solved it, well now you're kind of fucked, because you don't have a plans B through C through D, right? Whereas what we had, the way we had it done was we could look at the matrix and be like, yeah, cool. Let's say we're gonna put up our Death Guard. If they're gonna pin the Death Guard, they're probably gonna pin it with like, you know, say Chaos Knights and fucking whatever, like Necrons, hypothetically. Well, if the rest of our lineup is bad into those, it doesn't really matter that we're getting pinned. So we can put up something that's gonna get pinned by something that we kind of want them to pin us with. Whereas if you've designed something to be a pin, you kind of don't have that fluidity, you don't have that flexibility. So being able to adapt on the fly was a really key element of Team Australia's strategy this year. And that extends beyond just on the day as well. Like our strategy when it came to faction selection was to basically provide the players with maximum capacity to be as fluid as possible. In the past, we've really focused on faction mastery, and we want the same player playing the same faction for a long period of time, because, you know, we've all had those situations where we know something about our faction and nobody else does, because it's this really rare trick that we can use 1 in every 50 games that nobody knows about, nobody learns about, but we know about it, and that's a huge advantage. So that's something Team Australia has been really, really heavily focused on in the past, and we didn't want to take away from that focus. But basically what I did was a very laissez-faire approach where I basically encourage the players, like if you've got an idea of something else that you want to do it. You don't have to stress about, you know, whether or not it's going to work or, you know, just do it. Just like a real get it done kind of attitude of just, you know, if you try 100 different ideas and then none of them work, you can always go back to your original plan. It's sort of like, I remember watching an interview with Jeff Bezos where he was talking about this, where there's you know, there's two types of doors. There's doors that you can go through and then you can go back through if you don't like what's in there. And then there's doors you can go through, but then they close behind you. And basically the only decisions he's interested in being involved in are the ones where the door closes behind you. And I had that same sort of approach with my team where it was like, cool, you're on Emperor's Children, and if you want to explore another faction, just do it, you know, because if it doesn't work, you can always just go back to your Emperor's Children. It's only when we get to a point like list submission, for example, where once those decisions are made, that door shuts. You can't change it at that point. That's the point when I wanted to be maximally involved. But outside of that, I gave my players all the freedom they want to be as adaptive as possible, which really helped us out when the Chaos Knights and Imperial Knights update dropped, because it was such a huge shake-up to the meta that if we weren't in that adaptive mindset, we may not have been able to adapt to it in time. And whether that be adapt into it as in provide solutions to kill the Knights, or fielding the Knights ourselves, or what we ended up on, which was kind of a bit of both, right? But that adaptive mindset is one of the main contributing factors to the team's overall strategy, was just be fluid, be adaptive. You guys are the best players in the nation. You guys are absolute killers. You guys are brilliant strategists and tacticians. I have no doubt that wherever we land is going to be the best place that we could land. So explore, go forth and, you know, do your thing. And we actually had a few last minute changes, like Reese Cunningham was on Emperor's Children almost the entire time, all the way up until literally the day before list submission. We had a boot camp in Sydney where we basically a bunch of the members of the team flew to one of our teammates' houses. He put us up and we had games and shit all that weekend, and list submission was due the Sunday night. And basically the plan was this was going to be our final opportunity to test things before we submitted our lists, and then we were going to submit them all together as a team. So we did that, we had our games, and literally on the Sunday morning, Reese was like, I don't think Emperor's Children work. And everyone was like, what do you mean? Lists are due tonight. But basically we played a bunch of practice games into Knights, and we found that the Emperor's Children got smashed by them, and they got smashed by Death Guard, and they got smashed by Blood Angels, and they got smashed by, and it was like, okay, well hang on, if it's getting smashed by 6 out of the top 8 lists, like cool, it beats Eldar, who gives a shit? So we were just like, well, you know, we decided we were going to be maximally adaptive this year, so let's adapt. And Reese, luckily, is a Sisters player from years back. You know, he was our Sisters player last year. He's been the Sisters player for Team Victoria for several years. He's a bit of a master on the Sisters. So we were like, yeah, just pick it back up. It's fine. And he just jumped, literally wrote a list then and there and submitted it. And like, obviously that's not optimal. And during the event, there was a few moments where Reese admitted to me that like, he should have had 2 priests instead of the 1, for example. Like there was some minor tweaks he wanted to make to the list, but obviously it's too late. And it's easy to look at that and be like, yeah, the list was undercooked. But you know what would have been worse? If we were too rigid and we forced him to stay on Emperor's Children, because that's what he'd been practicing on and that's what the rest of the team were built around. We were assuming we have an Emperor's Children player. And if he had been rigid and had stayed on Emperor's Children, he would have performed significantly worse. So being able to just go, cool, I trust my players with my life, get the fucking best list you can find, and feel empowered to make those sorts of changes if you feel it's necessary. That was a real core element of my leadership strategy this year, and the team's overall strategy was just maximal player empowerment. But yeah, I'm gonna finish my watermelon spritz and continue my walk around this epic city. One of the other great things about the WTC is the culture of shirt swapping and dice swapping. This shirt that I'm wearing now was from the captain of Team Netherlands. We did a swap at the end of the day, and it's a really cool way that we can sort of share our culture, share our experience, and give each other sort of a bit of a souvenir from the event. It's really, really cool. There's some really awesome designs out there, and the teams like to put as much of their culture into their shirts as possible so that you can sort of, you know, share that around, and because obviously being a huge event with several days of War Masters and several days of the teams event, most players need, in order to represent their team the whole time, need to get their hands on like 6 to 7 shirts. But obviously once the event's completed, you don't want 6 to 7 of the same shirt. So that's why we do this sort of shirt swapping process where, you know, after each round you talk to your opponent, and if they're happy to, you do the same size, you can swap shirts, or you can organize swaps with somebody else on the team, or you can, you know, go around to other countries and get shirt swaps with them as well. This year I ended up with a Netherlands shirt, a Finland shirt, an Ireland shirt, an Israel shirt. What else did I get? I got a Latvian shirt. The Latvian shirt I think is probably my favorite. They've got some really cool stuff on their shirt. And now there's people out there in the world representing Australia because they've got my shirt. And it's just a really cool way of expanding your wardrobe. I pretty much exclusively own Team 40K shirts at this stage because it's my 3rd year of WTC, so my wardrobe's fucking packed full of them. But yeah, it's super cool. The other thing that's really cool is the dice swaps. We do that every year as well. Obviously every team gets a ton of dice made. Well, not every team, but most teams get a ton of dice made with their national designs on them, and you swap them with your opponents so that you can have a bit of a souvenir as well. One thing Team Australia did this year, which was different to previous years, is we actually got like 4,000 dice made so that we would have enough to do a dice swap with every single person at the event. Even people who didn't have dice, we just gave them a stack of dice. And as a result, I now have every dice at the event. I haven't sorted through them yet, obviously, because I'm on holidays, but it's pretty cool. There's some really ripper designs in there. Once I get back to Melbourne, I might, you know, sort them all out and do a video, get you guys to maybe vote on which one you think is the coolest. But it's just a really awesome souvenir. I'm planning to take one of each dice and frame them as just a memory of the trip, and then keep a bunch for rolling dice in games. So yeah, that's just a bit of an update on the culture of the WTC, where the team, like, you're not going to swap shirts with somebody that you hate, you know? So it just goes to show that, you know, the WTC really is a place where sportsmanship thrives and camaraderie and mateship is forged. And Croatia is where steps are fucking forged, because goddamn, there's a lot of steps here. But alright guys, I'll hit you guys back with another update shortly. So I spoke a little bit about the culture of the WTC with the shirt swaps and the dice swaps, etc. What I want to do now is talk a little bit about the culture of Team Australia itself, because there's no doubt that we have a relatively unique culture. So I'm going to grab a seat and explain a little bit about how Team Australia approaches the WTC in general from a perspective of team culture. So I'm a strong believer that culture within a team is one of the pivotal parts of any team's success or lack thereof. If you have a really toxic culture, you're going to struggle to get that success. And if you have a very positive culture, it can go a long way towards contributing to your success. So one of the things we do in Team Australia is we make sure that not only do we have a very hard-nosed, competitive culture which demands merit, demands results, and is very, very pro-competitive mindset, we also go to arguably ridiculous lengths to ensure that our culture also reflects the jovial nature of the Australian community by making sure that our players are maximally free to enjoy the trip as a holistic experience. We have tons of memes, tons of zings, tons of banter. We don't encourage any player to take themselves too seriously. Everybody is, free for jokes. You can be the punchline of anyone's joke, but they can be the punchline of your joke. And I'm a strong believer that builds a sense of camaraderie between you and your fellow teammates, even though there will be contentious times because there are obviously egos at play. But I think that also creates a bit of a pressure release as well. The WTC is the highest pressure event that you can attend in the terms of Warhammer 40k. Like the pressure that the players are under is absolutely immense. And if you don't have that release valve and you don't give players the opportunity to sort of, alleviate that pressure through a bit of laughter, a bit of banter, a few trolls here and there, and a couple of zings, if you don't do that, that pressure builds up and then it causes people to have anxiety. It causes people to overthink things. It causes people to panic when they're in difficult situations, and that can cause you to lose rounds. So, we go to a lot of effort to make sure that we're, providing experiences for our players where they can sort of let some of that pressure go, relax a little bit, have a little bit of fun with it, not take it too seriously, whilst simultaneously reinforcing that competitive, serious mindset. It's a very delicate balance to sort of strike, and I mean, we don't always do it amazingly. Sometimes we probably go a little bit too far in the silly direction. Other times we might go a little bit too far in the hyper competitive. I'm sure every team has similar dynamics. But this is something that as captain of Team Australia, I've been very conscious of, because a lot of our success, for example, the year that Team Australia won the event, we also won Best Sports. And that's because everybody was having an amazing time. People were laughing and playing around and being silly and having a ton of fun. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I don't think it's a coincidence that the year we won Best Sports, we also won the event overall. There's a few things that we do specifically. So one of them is our chant that we do before every round. The team huddle up and we do our chant. And the typical Aussie chant is Aussie, 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 oi, oi, oi. Whereas one of the things that we've done this year and the previous years is replace the oi, oi, oi part of the chant. There was years where we had big dick energy. There was one where we had balls on chin. Then in the previous year, we had solely fucks to Jeremy, which was a ton of fun. And then this year we mixed it up between rounds. So as the trip progressed and as the event progressed, we changed the chant to reflect the funny thing that happened last night. And that's a good way of, when you're doing your huddle, you're about to go into the round, you're about to face off against some of the best players in the world. It's a good way to just remind the team of how much fun we had last night, and it really alleviates the pressure. One of the other things that we do is during the pairings exercise, when we're putting forward our pairings cards and flipping them and revealing who's getting paired into who, we do a big ooh-ah clap. So basically what happens is as the first put up gets put forward, we go ooh, and then when it's revealed, we go ah. And then when we're paired in, we go hey, and we clap. And it's ridiculous and it's stupid, but it's funny. And the team love it. And the amount of times that the other teams will start joining in, where as they're putting up their things, they'll hit us with an ooh-ah, and then they're all laughing. It's so funny, and it's such a great way to build that relationship with the opposing team during that pairings exercise, which is typically one of the most intense parts because you're trying to outthink and outwit your opponent's strategy. People are worried about what they're going to get put into. There's a lot of anxiety there. So being able to build that ooh-ah into that is so much fun. And we got to a point where we had, when we were playing against Sweden this year, we're playing Sweden, we're ooh-ahing, they're ooh-ahing, but all of the tables surrounding us were joining in on the clapping. And it was so funny, like the whole event just gets into it. And that's an Aussie innovation, the ooh-ah. And it's really funny because obviously it's 8-man teams, so there's several rounds of put up, reveal, pair, that whole process happens several times. And we do it every time. And it's really funny because the first time we do it, it's like a 7 out of 10 funny. Then the next time we do it, it's like a 6 out of 10 funny. And the next time we do it, it's like a 5 out of 10 funny. But then the next time that we do it, it becomes like a 9 out of 10 funny, because it's that joke that like, the more you do it, the more they realize, oh, this is funny, oh, this is dumb, this is stupid, oh my God, they're still going, you know, and it creates this really funny thing where it gets like less funny and then it gets way funnier. And yeah, a lot of the other teams really get into it, which was really, really cool. And that goes a long way towards building a much more holistic experience that the players enjoy every aspect of. And also, I genuinely believe that it contributes to our results. One of the other things is we like to be very generous in Australia. So this year I got 4,000 dice made so that everybody at the event could have a Team Australia dice, regardless of whether or not they brought their own dice. So that's an example of our generosity. And then I also made these gift packs that had like a little plush koala or kangaroo. It had 16 objective markers, 16 dice, 16 range rulers, a pack of Tim Tams, a pack of Vegemite, all of this sort of stuff that we could gift to the opposing team as a way of saying thank you very much in advance for being lovely opponents. And you know, we want to share Australian culture with you guys, hence the Tim Tams, the koala and the Vegemite. There was one round where one of our players, Matt Morosoli, is notorious for getting his big toes sucked. He's had captains from Team Poland. He's had just numerous people have sucked his toe. And it's become a bit of a fable, a bit of a, you know, a bit of a moment that happens in WTC history. And this year we took it to the next level where when we were doing the pairings exercise into Scotland, we actually got his toe, dipped it in the jar of Vegemite, and then had one of the Scottish coaches suck the Vegemite off of his toe. And it's like, this is just completely unnecessary, completely ridiculous, but so much fun, so funny, that every team just gets in on it and they love it and they have a good laugh, and it makes the event more memorable, more enjoyable, and it definitely contributes to our results. Whether you're superstitious or not and you view it from that lens, or if you just view it from a human psychology lens where people tend to perform better when they're in a good mood, whereas when people are in a bad mood, they tend to close their mind a little bit more. So trying to make sure that people are in that good mood and trying to make sure people are relaxed, it generates creativity. It helps with problem solving for complex challenges. And I genuinely believe that that contributed to some of our success this year. Team Australia is comprised of more than just 8 world-class players. This year we actually took a squad of 16 to the event. So let's talk a little bit about those supporting teams, what their roles were, and how much impact they had on Team Australia's results for 2025, and how important they were. So we had obviously your 8 players, that locks 8 of them out, and we'll talk about those guys in a moment. But in addition to that, we had 2 people streaming for us for the entire event. We had myself as a captain, and then we had, so that's another 3 out of 16 plus 8, so that's 11. So then we had another 5 people remaining, and those 5 people were our coaching staff. Now, the coaches are only permitted in the area if they're one of the 4 nominated playing coaches. And basically, in order to prevent teams from flooding the playing area, the WTC restricted it so that you would only get 4 playing coaches and a non-playing captain, and everybody else had to stay outside of the playing area. So what we did is we nominated our 5th coach to be our data smith, and their job was basically to monitor other rounds and return important information to the team so that we could keep up to date with how everybody else is going, keep up to date with how everybody else's pairings have gone, that sort of stuff. So that was one person. And then the other 4 were our playing coaches. And their primary role was any general support that any players needed. So this ranges from running errands, going and getting Panadol from the shops, going and getting, you know, energy drinks and soft drinks, water, also observing challenging opponents. You know, if there's an opponent that had questionable rules, for example, we would monitor them. You know, or if there was a particular game that was getting angsty, we would monitor them. And
We basically just do that so that the players felt maximally supported, so that they weren't undue stress and that they weren't, feeling unnecessary pressure. There's something about having a faction master standing right beside you when you play Gene Stealer cults and you have no idea what the fuck Gene Stealer cult does. But you know that your coach is right next to you, he's got their book open and he knows everything they do. And that way you know that your opponent's not going to get any rules wrong and you're not going to miss it if they do, because you've got that support. And even though, to my knowledge, none of our opponents actually got rules wrong that required correction, there's something to be said for having somebody there observing and sort of providing that support. And then of course, when the rounds were going really, really well and we were under control, those people would then pivot from a coach role into more of a scout role. And in that scout role, they would essentially walk around the event and observe interesting matchups. So they'd go and watch, how does the Space Wolves army deploy when it's versing Imperial Knights? What does that look like? How do these weird fucking 100 Berserker lists perform? Like, what do? Do they put a unit 20 in reserves, or do they just deploy it all on the table? Are they aggressive? Do they just send everything out turn 1, or do they hold it all and wait for a later turn? Gathering that sort of information, which they were then able to feed back to the teams, made our lives much, much easier, as we were able to effectively plan and predict what the opponent was going to do in their turns and in the way that they approached the pairings exercise. So that was a real critical component for the coaching team, and we would chop them in and out. So like I said, we were only allowed 4 in the playing space, and we had 5 people available plus the 2 streamers plus myself. But basically what we do is, if one person was like, oh, I'm going to go do some scouting, we'd send them out, and then that other person, the data smith, was able to step in to the area. The data smith was a really important role as well. They were doing things like looking at key matchups that we think we're good into, but our opponent thinks we're bad into. So, for example, if the Eldari are consistently beating Imperial Knights at the event, but our Imperial Knights player thinks he beats the Eldari, our data smith would identify that, he would flag that, and then the team would review it. And maybe we're right, maybe our Imperial Knights has some special tech that makes them really good into the Eldar, or maybe we're wrong and there's something we need to look into and we realize, oh wow, they can actually brick one big knight with just the swooping hawks. That's a problem we didn't know about. And then we can amend our matrix to reflect that. So having that data smith on site, able to sort of continuously pull data from best curse pairings and continually update the team on how it was going down, was really, really helpful. And basically what happened is, when somebody needed to do a scouting mission, they would report to the data smith. So we might be like, yep, everything's under control here. Stewie, go report to Gashi and get your assignment. And then Gashi would go, okay, cool, I've noticed that this particular Imperial Guard list seems to be hunting Death Guard. It's played it 3 times already in the event and it's won all 3 of them. It's playing Death Guard again right now. Can you go observe it and see how he's beating them? Because it's all well and good to know that a certain matchup is favorable or unfavorable, but to know why is also really important. Because sometimes if they're hunting something and we know their trick, we actually want them to hunt us because we can set traps. So knowing how they win and what they're doing is really, really effective in terms of overall team strategy. So that was the scouts and the coaches and the data smith. And then the only other thing, which I'll do a separate video on, was me as captain and what my role was. One of the things that I really wanted to make sure we didn't get wrong was the way that the coaches interact with players, because this is something that can be fucked up really easily. So what we did is I basically implemented a rule where the only person that could initiate contact with a player was myself. If the coaches are hovering around and a player needs something, a player can initiate communication with a coach, turn around and say, hey Stewie, go grab us a drink of water or whatever. But under no circumstances were coaches to initiate contact with a player. And that way it's almost impossible for our coaches to overstep or make any mistakes. We've had that in the past, not Australia, but the event has had in the past instances where the coaches actually caused more problems than they solved. Even this year, there was one point during one of the captains' meetings where the head referee said that they'd handed out a ton of warnings, but like 80% of the warnings were handed out to coaches because the coaches weren't following the rules for what non-playing members can actually do. So I was really strict on that, made sure that we were ticking all the boxes and that at no point were any of our coaches overstepping. And I'll do a separate video talking about my role as captain during the event, because obviously my role is multifaceted. There's things that I did in the lead up to the event, there's things that I did during the event, and now there's things that I'm doing post-event, all of which are very different. But I'll do a separate video talking about my role as captain during the event, because I'm going to need to bust out my laptop to show you guys some stuff. One of the most important parts of my role on the day as captain, in addition to like coordinating the team and making sure that everyone's at the right place and doing the right thing, was communicating and updating the scores. So getting information from my players about how they're tracking in their games and what their score is likely to be, and then communicating that with other players, and then making the executive decision on whether I want my players to push or whether I want them to play a stable game. Now, this can be quite complex, and there are a lot of specific rules on what I, as a non-playing member, can say to another playing member. For example, I can't give them information on the specifics of other games, and also if they give me specifics on their game, I have to refuse to comment. So for example, if they say, hey, I'm thinking about going for a charge, but it's a 9-inch charge, it's unlikely, do you think I should go for it or not? I have to walk away. I'm not allowed to comment on that. However, if they say, I've got an idea, it's probably an 80% fail rate. However, on that 20% chance that it does work, it's going to result in me getting a significantly higher score. Do we need that high score, or are we happy with a more conservative score? That they can say. And I can also advise them to seek those opportunities if I deem it necessary. So it's quite complex, the way that this all sort of unfolds. And it's very difficult to navigate. Going around and asking for players for updates and then telling them to push arbitrarily actually does more damage to the players than help, because telling them to push, they're like, well, what does that mean? What do I do with this information? And why is this the case? It can be quite complex. So what I created for Team Australia was a relatively basic tool, but it was also a very impactful one, which I'll show you now, which was, I'll just let the laptop boot up. But basically I created a point card that the players could point to scores on, and that way they were communicating to me what their projected score was likely to be without giving any of that information to the opponents. So basically what I do is I'd show the opponents the screen like so. I'm not sure if that'll show up on the camera, but it's basically a screen with a little table with a bunch of numbers from 1 to 20, all in green. And then it's got a few notes that they can point out. For example, trending upwards, trending downwards, stable or unstable. They can identify if they went first or second, whether they had favorable objective placement, and I can also communicate to them what the broader team score is. And the idea is I'd rock up to the table and I'd show my opponent first. I'd be like, I'm just going to show my player this screen so that they can point to some stuff for me, and then I'd flip it around like this and then get my player to look at it, making sure we're not touching the keyboard, so we're not tabbing to any other sheets or anything like that, just the sheet on the screen, and they would basically point at information and communicate that to me. And that way, basically what I'd do is, at the end of the round, we'd have a conversation as a team about whether or not our pairings went well,
And if our pairings went well and we were, projecting a win, well, then the advice to everybody would be just hold, do whatever you think you need to do to conservatively score your projected score, right? Score that outcome. Whereas if we had unfavorable pairings and it's looking like we're going to lose the round because, maybe we didn't get the matchups we wanted, well, then the advice would be to 1 or 2 players, can you flip your matchup, right? And if you can, do those riskier plays in order to do so. So as a great example of this could be our Blood Angels list. It can play 2 play styles. It can either have everything hiding and send out units 1 by 1 to trade off of objectives, and it can get a 10-10 into almost anything on a favorable board or a reasonable board, and it can spike higher if it needs to, right? So what we'd do is we'd basically put in the conservative score as if you're playing that trading game, but if we're gonna lose the round, it'd be like, okay, just full send. Because if you full send and you hit them and then they counter and bounce, and then you roll over them, you can turn that into a big win. And but if it fails, you'll turn it into a big loss. So you wouldn't want to do that if you were on track to win the round. However, if you were on track to lose the round, you might go, well, and we're going to lose the round anyway, so the downside of it becoming a huge loss isn't that bad, whereas the upside of you turning that into a big win could save the round for the rest of the players. So I would basically, as captain, I would look at our projected scores. I would go around, I'd use that laptop method to get updates regularly from the players. And I'd be like, okay, cool. What's the projected score? Is it trending upwards or downwards? Is it stable? Those who say it's stable, I'd be like, cool, just keep it stable for now. And then if any of them were trending down and it was looking like we were now gonna lose the round, that's when you'd go around and you'd tell people, okay, now's the time to push. And part of the challenge of this is often that information, you need that early. You need that real early because you can't suddenly push on turn 4 if you've been playing conservative all game. That's not going to save you. That might, if you pull it off and it works for you, it might get you an extra 5 to 10 battle points. It might get you an extra 1 or 2 on the differential. So it's not really that good if you do it late. So early in the round, we'd get our pairing starter, I'd update it, then I'd immediately do a whip around and be like, cool, did you go first or second? Because that can impact your score, And then people would update their score. So they might have put it in as a 12 on the matrix, but they're going first and they need to go second. So they'd tap went first, now it's a 10, And then I'd update that. And then the next part of this, which this is something that I couldn't show the players, but I would do this at the same time as the updates on the same spreadsheet, was I would be tracking people's projections. So let's have a look at perhaps Norway's projections. So this is the projections screen here, and basically you can see that this is our player, this is their faction, this is the opponent's faction, this is our initial projection, and then basically I'd get an update straight away and go, you can see straight off the update that our CSM into their Blood Angels went from a 13 down to an 11. And that's because our player got the first turn. And having the first turn means you have to initiate those trades, which makes it really hard to play that conservative game because you have to put something out there knowing you can't kill anything. Then they respond by killing it, and they get essentially the first drop. They also get the final say in that they get the final say on Deep Strike arrival, they get the final say on objectives when they get to do that big turn 5 playing second push to take objectives. So we went through and did a big update, and as you can see, our original projection was 84. However, after the update, our projection became 92, right? So I was able to tell our CSM player, even though their score had gone down from a 13 to an 11, I was able to say, that's fine, man, just play for your 11. You don't actually have to win, And, then I was able to tell, because our Necrons player, he went up, our Sisters player went up, our Blood Angels player went up. Like a lot of these people on that first update, the first time I spoke to them, they're like, yep, this is going to be a big win, a bigger win than I expected, which that allowed me to let the other players on the team know you don't need to stress too much. One of the big ones here was Greg with his 1,000 Suns into their Chaos Knights. He'd predicted a 4. It's like his worst possible matchup. After the first turn, he at that first turn update, he said it was probably more like an 8. He's like, I've got enough pieces that I can keep sending things out and sort of not trading because I can't kill the fucking things, but I can score all my secondaries. Like, I'll just keep scoring secondaries. There's not much he can do to stop me. I'll keep going out there and scoring, 5 primary a turn. So worst case scenario, it's actually not that big of a blowout. And I was able to tell him, look, that's actually just fine. You don't need to push for anything too crazy here. We'd actually survive with a 4. And he updated me and said, it's probably gonna be more like an 8. And I'm like, yep, lock that in. Just do whatever you need to do to secure that 8. So that's an example of the pairings going quite well, right? And the communication that I'd give to the players. And you'll notice that the language here is all about playing conservative or aggressive, pushing for, opportunities, or playing to your sort of plan. These are all things we're allowed to say. What I'm not allowed to say is make sure you kill 2 big knights this turn. I'm not allowed to give actual in-game advice. I'm able to give broader strategic advice based on the team's general direction. Like, it's okay for you to play for an 11 loss, or you need to do things to make sure that you get your 13, etc. But not every round was clean like that. So for example, in our Swedish round, we had a projected score of 81 off the start based on pairings, which is a win. It's a top side of a draw actually, because the WTC has a differential of 5 for score for draws. However, after our first whip around, in the first sort of battle round, almost all of our scores dropped by a point or 2, which pushed us down to a 71, which is no longer even in draw territory, it's in loss territory. So this is where it gets a bit hairy, because I then have to go around to the players and say, look guys, you've all given me your updates. Based on that, if everybody here achieves what they plan to, we're gonna lose the round. So then I have to talk to each player and say, do you feel that this is flippable, right? And by that I mean, like, is there a 5% chance that you could flip this? Is there a 10% chance you could flip this? Like, what are the risks? Are there risky things you could do to flip the game? And again, they can't tell me what those risky things are, because then that would be me giving them in-game advice. But basically, they would give me like probabilities, and then I would then go off, weigh up those probabilities, and decide which players on the team need to go for it and which ones shouldn't. So for example, if our Sisters of Battle player goes, yeah, I've got it marked down as a 12, but if I take some risks, I could probably get it up to a 14, and there's about a 50-50 chance it works, right? So then I walk away and I'm like, cool, we got a 50-50 opportunity over here to gain an extra 2 points. But then I'd go to another table and they'd say, I've got this play, I think it'll work. It's like, I don't know, like an 80% chance, and it's gonna get me probably another 2 points, right? So now I know I've got an 80% chance for 2 points and a 50% chance for 2 points. What I would then do is I'd go around and say, cool, Sisters Battle player, don't worry about it, just play conservatively, get your 12, because our Blood Angels player has a better chance of getting us those 2 extra points, right? And doing that is a way of managing the team's overall strategy to ensure that we're not taking unnecessary risks in some areas, because we have more reliable risks in other areas. Now, there's still risks, and there's still generally things you would rather not have to do. I would rather look at the pairings matrix and be like, oh, we're projecting a win. Everybody just score your expected value. And then everyone does that and we win. Obviously, that's the utopia. But often you'll find that one person's prediction drops, like they have a really bad turn, they lose a couple of important units, they drop, so then all of a sudden the team is now on track for a loss. So you then need to go and update everybody, because if you don't, we're gonna lose. So having that captain in that position, able to go around and find out who can turn it and who can't, very important. It's also really important for, like, if, for example, in the Swedish round, I did that. And one of the challenges to doing this is you're gambling, right? And sometimes when you gamble, you lose. And you find out, okay, we've got an 80% chance of getting an extra 2 points here, a 50% chance of getting an extra 3 points over there. So you give people all the advice, yep, do it, because if we land these 3 things, we get back into winning or draw territory. And then you give them that advice, and then you come around half an hour to an hour later and they failed. And you're like, well, now we're going from a small loss to getting actually dumpstered. And that's unfortunately what happens sometimes. That is what happened to us in Sweden, is we basically projected that we were going to get a loss. So we then went around and updated people, told them to take risks. They took the risks didn't pay off, and we lost even harder. And that's why sometimes when you look at WTC pairings and scores, when a team loses, they lose pretty hard. You know, they either get a draw or they lose hard, because the second you fall into we're going to lose territory, you kind of have no choice but to make like buck wild moves and essentially throw yourself either back into a draw or deeper into a loss. But that's sort of my call as the captain to make, and that's how I need to communicate that to the teams. And I use that laptop heavily to basically do a whip around, get everyone's updates, sit down, crunch the numbers, look at it, then do another walk around where I don't interact with the players. I just look at the game states, I just look at them, and I listen to the players, and I go, okay, this person's talking like they have opportunity and they have game. This person's clearly panicking and freaking out because they're getting dumpstered. And I basically have to then go back and make an informed decision on which players I'm going to ask to push and which players I'm going to let them know that it's okay to just play for your small loss. It's also worth noting that at some point, the writing's on the wall, where you look at it, you're like, okay, we're projecting, like for example, into Sweden, I think we were projecting 6 out of 8 games were going to be losses, some of which were quite significant losses. So at that point, there's actually nothing that we can do to pull that back into a draw or a win, right? Because these players are all getting dumpstered. So basically what I'd do is I'd walk around, do a final update and be like, are you sure? Like, how stable is it? And people would say, yeah, it's a stable loss, right? Trending downwards, stable loss. And once everybody's confirmed that, it's like, okay, I would just go around to people and say, all right, for the next hour of the round, just have fun with it, man. Like, we've lost the round. You know, you can just, don't stress, don't put yourself under undue pressure, because I kind of view pressure as a resource that you have limited of, right? And if you're wasting it in certain rounds when there's a foregone conclusion, that's not wise, because people cannot be under that intense level of pressure for 7 straight games into the world's best players. It'll break them, right? And you want that pressure more than ever at the final rounds. So you don't want to waste it on round 4 or round 3 with people like just really stressing about their games and trying so hard to scrape for points and getting really emotionally invested in it and devastated when their things fail. And then all of a sudden there's like that pressure builds up, and it was for nothing because we'd already lost the round even if their things did go the way they wanted. So, things like clock pressure, things like angsty debates and arguments with the opponents, all of that sort of stuff, it's not worth it when the data suggests that we're already losing the round. And as long as the team are accurate with their data and accurate with their predictions, then it is what it is, right? So that's when I'd go around and I'd update the players and be like, guys, we're going down to Sweden, so don't stress, don't panic. We'll bring it back in the next round. But for now, just play out your games. Obviously, try to get as many points as you can. You don't want to just concede, because at the end of the day, the points will determine our placings. But don't get too angsty about it. Just go for it, right? And there's a few advantages to that as well. So for example, I'll say all that to them in front of our opponents, right? And when the opponent hears that, they take their foot off the accelerator as well, right? Because they no longer need to be angsty about the little minutiae of it to try to deny you those points, because they know that they're winning anyway, right? So it's kind of almost a reverse psyop, where I'm like communicating to them, I'm communicating to my players something that I want the opponent to hear, because it's going to impact their decision making. So that's a really important component of it as well, because then, instead of it becoming a 50 to 110, it might be like a 65 to 125 or whatever, 115 or whatever the maths is. And as a result, they still get the win that they wanted. But now we get more points out of the loss, which then means we place higher. You know, we were on the same win-loss record as a few of the teams that placed below us, and that's because the wins that we got were big wins, and the losses that we got were seldom blowouts. You know, they weren't massive losses. We've scraped as many points out of that as we could, but in a very measured and calculated way. So that's the sort of summary of my role as a captain during the round. I also had to manage the support team, so I had to manage the other coaches, the streamers, and our data smith, and make sure that each one of those people were doing the right thing. So certain things like, for example, one of our players was experiencing clock difficulty. He was getting very close to clocking out multiple times. He never did, but he got close a couple of times, which was giving us a bit of a concern. So one of the things that I did is I made sure that my coaches were monitoring his clock and making sure that it was being used correctly. Because the last thing I wanted was for him to clock out and then be like, yeah, but we spent 10 minutes of your turn on my clock, and have that kind of awkward argument. So I was like, just coaches, just as you're doing your rotations through the tables, just every time you walk past this clock, check it and make sure that it is ticking down on the right timer, right? On the right player. And if you ever notice that, hang on, he's rolling dice, but that's my player's clock going down, immediately take a photo of the clock and let me know. We'll summon a referee and the referee will go and fix it. So that's the idea with, that was one of the functions of the non-playing members, the coaches. And that was something that I was able to adapt on the fly. Like, I just noticed on the fly that this one player was consistently having trouble with his clock. And it wasn't trouble in a negative sense. It was a trouble in that his army was a combat army. He's often in combat really early in the game, which means sometimes you walk past, everybody else is on turn 3 or 4, and he's still on top of turn 2 because he was in combat from turn 1, right? So it looks like, wow, he's significantly further behind than everybody else on the clock. However, his games were often finished by turn 3 because once you've been in combat for turn 1 and 2, your opponent's dead. And then the last few turns are like that, right? So that was one of the elements as well, was basically making those sorts of decisions on the fly and making sure that our coaches were active and engaged, because one of the challenges with being a coach is it can become boring as you're just like watching a game and you're just standing there and you can't interact, you know, and you see mistakes happening and you're like, oh, why is he doing that? But there's nothing I can do about it. I'm not allowed to talk to him. So it can be frustrating and it can be tiresome. So one of the things that I did is a rotation where basically we had 4 non-playing coaches in that space, and basically each one would be assigned 2 tables, and then I'd rotate those tables throughout. So, you know, it'd be like, okay, cool, Stewie's looking after these front 2 tables, then it's Sam, then it's Adam, and then it's, you know, like Callaghan at the back, and then we'd rotate them and we'd basically go, Stewie, I want you to go swap places with Callaghan. And then Stewie would go to the back table and Callaghan would come to the front table. And that way they're not just staring at the one game the whole time. Sometimes that would be appropriate. So for example, if we had a Tyranids or a Gene Stealer Cult matchup, I'd want Stewie watching that because we didn't have those factions on our team. So we didn't have any experts in those factions. So making sure that we had somebody available to watch that game specifically was very useful. But generally speaking, we rotated them out. I made sure to manage their fatigue. I made sure that they were getting important updates. Like there were a few instances where, you know, the player would say that they're a 12 to me, and then one of the coaches would be like, I've played this matchup a ton of times. I don't think he is a 12. I think he's probably going to get like a 13 or a 14, right? And if that was the case, if there was a disjoint between the player's prediction and the coach's prediction, I would then go and look at the table myself and see what my thoughts are. And if I thought that the player was accurate, I'd put in their score. If I thought the coach was accurate, I'd put in theirs. 90% of the time, I just went with the player as they're the one that's playing the game. You know, it's all well and good for a coach to look at a table and think, oh, we're about to get a massive win because he's about to be able to go over here and charge that, tag all of this stuff. You know, it's going to be a disaster for the opponent. But if our player doesn't see that same play path, if they don't see that, they're going to be like, oh, it's going to be like a 10-10. And the last thing I want to do is to have me and the coach walk over and see this trajectory that the player doesn't see, then put it in on the matrix and expect that outcome, but then have the player not deliver it because they couldn't see that path. So you almost always want to side with the player's prediction. There was only a few instances where I didn't, and that was instances where the player was playing against a faction they weren't super familiar with, and they actually said, ask the coaches to give an update on their prediction because I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, right? And that's obviously something we want to avoid by having as many practice games into as broad of a range as possible, but you can't practice into everything. And also the quality of practice you get is going to vary heavily depending on the pilot of the opposing list. So it's not an exact science, but that's one of the mechanisms that we would use during the round to sort of secure the overall strategy of the team and make sure that we are still traveling in the direction that that strategy dictates. And if we needed to deviate from that, that's how I would make those decisions, by putting in that data and updating that tracker. And that way I could see, yep, where are we trending, where are we going up, where are we going down, and how do I communicate that? A lot of teams do a similar thing, but they use just a pen, like pen and paper and a notepad, and they'll write stuff down. Then a lot of teams will also have like a printout with not too dissimilar to what I did here. One of the advantages to the laptop method is I could change it on the fly. So for example, during, I think it was the second or third round, one of the players asked me how the rest of the team was going, and I wanted to provide that information without our opponent seeing it, right? And without them hearing it. So I didn't want to say, yeah, we're fucking smashing them, but I wanted my player to know that we were. So what I did is I added a column on the side that was, you know, the team's predicted score, and I put like a 0 to 75, 75 to 80, 80 to 85, 85 to 90, and a 90 plus as the options in the grid. And then basically I'd show the laptop to my opponent, be like, this is what I'm going to show my player, and then I'd turn around and I'd point at the 90 plus. And that way I'm not showing the opponent that we're 90 plus. They know that I'm pointing at something on this table, but I'm able to communicate that discreetly to my player. And this was something that I realized I needed when a player asked me how are we tracking, and I was just like, hang on one sec, I'll be right back. And I just quickly dipped out, added a few more columns, put in a few numbers, and then I was able to go back and show the opponent, this is what I'm going to show my player, and then flip it around and show the player the number. You can't do that if you're using pen and paper, or at least not as easily. You probably can if you're using a notepad with pen and paper, but yeah, it is what it is. This also makes it easy for the opponents to click on the big box numbers and stuff like that. I think it's just a very good system, and then it allows me to immediately then take that information, type it in, have it automatically calculate the differentials that we're expected, automatically sum up the scores that we're going to get across the team to determine if we're still on track for a win or a draw. Very effective method for managing the team's scores throughout the round. There was one player that took an issue with this, where they said, oh, but you could Alt-Tab to another screen that has like specific instructions for that specific player. Like I could open a Word document and I could write, hey man, make sure when you charge that you put yourself within pile-in range of this thing so that you can tag it so it doesn't shoot back or whatever. I could put all that in a Word document and then put that behind the spreadsheet and then just Alt-Tab. So I was like, oh shit, I didn't think of that. So I checked the rules of the event, and the rules of the event specifically say that this is allowed. And then I also went and checked with the referee, and I was like, am I allowed to just show the laptop like this? As long as I'm not touching any of the keys, the laptop's just there. And they were totally fine with that. So they said, as long as you're not touching the keys and they're just pointing at things on the screen, that's totally fine. So I made sure to be very clear with our opponents that that's what we were doing, and there was no issues there. But it just goes to show the level of sort of scrutiny that all of these sorts of techniques go through, because they really are very like strong on integrity, and they don't want any players gaining any unfair advantage, and having a captain being able to provide specific instructions would be a massive and very unfair advantage. So just keep an eye out for that if you're trying to take a system like this and modify it for your own use. Just make sure that you are super clear with your opponents that this is the screen that I'm showing, there's no other tabs open, and I'm not going to Alt-Tab to anything else. 99% of people totally fine with it, didn't have an issue at all, but it is worth knowing that it is something that some people might have challenges with if you don't communicate clearly. But yeah, that more or less wraps up my role as a non-playing captain during the rounds. Obviously the role extends well beyond that, in everything from the lead up to and the formation of the team, developing the team culture, you know, organizing, coordinating everything, liaising with the referees and event organizers, you know, deciding on all of the major decisions like, well, where is our accommodation going to be? How are we getting to and from the airport? You know, what are we doing in terms of team lineup? Who's going to be on which faction? How are we going to manage that? How are we going to make those decisions? All of that in the lead up to the event. Organizing the dice, the shirts, the apparel, all of that sort of stuff, managing the website, creating the Discord and updating that. There's tons of work that goes into that stuff. And then there's this, which we've just discussed on the day, in addition to making sure that we have our team huddles, making sure that everyone's getting updated, making sure that the coaches are coordinated, making sure everyone's getting their lunch orders on time, etc. You know, there's all of that as well. And then obviously post-event, there's a lot of work as well, which is, you know, reconciling the event itself, updating everybody at home, making sure that, you know, the process continues on into future years, you know, whether that be by having an election to nominate a new captain, whether that be by retaining captaincy. You know, there's a lot of decisions to be made there. And then there's also a lot of things to be managed about, well, how are we going to improve year on year? Because that is always the goal. Even if you're coming dead last, if you just set your sights slightly above where you are and you keep going for it, you will slowly rise, slowly rise. I think there's a lot of teams come unstuck when they aim for a specific placing. They just want to come first, or they just want a podium, or they just want a top 5 or whatever. My metric has always been, and this is on a personal level at tournaments and as a team leader as well, and you know, a figure in that regard, is always been like, let's just do better than we did last time. You know, and obviously that's hard to do when you're, you know, captaining a team that has historically come first. It's obviously very hard to do. But at the end of the day, all you can do is try to get better. And if that means trying to come first and win best sports, or come first with beautifully painted armies, or come first whilst fostering a future generation, you know. You don't want to come first at the expense of burning out all your top players and then they all drop off a cliff, and then you're left with no good players anymore, and future years for your team really struggle. You don't want that, right? You want to make sure that you're doing this right, and remaining in that seed 1 for as long as possible is the goal. And you can only do that if your plan is just continuous improvement. But yeah, so I'm going to wrap it up here. I'm going to go grab some dinner and a couple more cocktails. But that wraps up the coverage for today, and I'll hit you guys back tomorrow with some more. G'day guys, here we are on the final leg of my trip for WTC 2025 in Athens, and I thought I'd take a moment to kick back and talk to you guys a little bit about Teams 40K and why I think it's so awesome. There's several reasons, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a different backdrop for each one. So the first reason is the fact that your wins feel stronger and your losses are less impactful. When you're playing a singles event, every time you lose, you're kind of taking yourself out of contention, right? Whereas in a teams event, you can lose your game while the rest of your team wins their games, and that propels you into a win. And you can also win your game and have one of your colleagues lose their game and still secure the round win. So it sort of takes the sting out of losing, whilst also enhancing the feeling you get when you win, because you're bringing your friends with you. And that teams component is completely missing from singles 40K, and in my opinion is one of the drawbacks to singles 40K, because it's kind of win at all cost. It's like you have to win or you might as well not be there, whereas that's not true of teams events. In teams events you can be losing a game, but you can look around and see how your teammates are doing, and you can be very proud of what you're achieving as a team, as opposed to focusing singularly on your own results. And this does so many things that are truly only knowable if you participate in teams events. Like, you'll notice when you're playing somebody, if you're beating them in a singles event, there's always the chance that they're going to get angsty, that they're going to, get triggered, or they're going to tilt, or, that sort of behavior. That doesn't generally happen in teams events because of the aforementioned, dynamic where you can lose your game and still win the round. So that side of things in teams events is an absolute fantastic thing that is so unique to teams, that you can essentially lose your games and still win rounds, and that when you do win your games, you can be proud of the fact that you won for your team. So that's the first thing about teams events that's truly unique and awesome in my opinion. One of the other ripper things about the Teams 40K format is the way that the format itself influences faction representation. In a traditional singles event, you always end up with that one or two factions that absolutely dominate the top of the meta, and like half of the event are running either like Space Marines or Custodians or whatever the hot shit is at the time. Whereas one of the beautiful things about the Teams events is each faction is limited to one representation per 8-man team. So at the very worst, you're going to see a faction represent 1/8 of the field. And this allows for certain factions that may be underrepresented just because they're just outperformed by something else to be represented in the Teams format. It's so much fun, and it allows for a much more diverse array of armies that you see on the tabletops. Faction selection is impacted by more than just the restrictions placed on what factions you can select. It's also heavily impacted on the meta that is created by the WTC format, or the Teams 40K format. So for example, let's say you're a World Leaders player and you really struggle into things like, say, Death Guard, or say Chaos Knights, or pick your faction at whatever point during whatever meta. There's always that one or two factions that your faction really struggles into. And if those two factions are hyper popular in the singles competitive meta, you're going to have a miserable time for the duration of those singles events, because you're really going to struggle to push through those really popular archetypes. Whereas in the teams format, that's not a problem, because you can come up with a pairing strategy that allows your world leaders to dodge the Death Guard or dodge the Chaos Knights or whatever it is that you're struggling with. And if you're dodging them, you're going to be able to get nice, easy games, or at least balanced games, into things like Eldar, into things like Space Marines, or whatever it is that you enjoy playing. And that's something that's unique to teams. In the singles event, you get zero agency over who you play and what their faction is. Whereas in the teams environment, you do get some agency. There's also that some factions have specific tables that they require. Like, for example, a World Leaders player likes lots of terrain. They like good hiding spots. Or a Tau army, for example, it likes very minimal terrain with very few hiding spots. And one of the other things about teams events is it gives you some agency over what table you play on. And that unlocks certain factions that really cannot thrive within a singles environment, but in a teams environment, they can be some of the most valuable armies out there, some of the most valuable factions. So as a result, you combine that with what I discussed earlier about the restrictions, and the faction selection within teams events is so much better. The diversity of factions that you'll see, the diversity of armies you'll see is absolutely phenomenal. Speaking of army diversity, one of the other things that's really cool about Teams 40K is that you can bring truly wild lists that you wouldn't be able to pull off in a singles environment. Think the 80 Khorne Berserkers from France this year, or the 30 World Leaders Terminators from my list in the previous year. These are things that have been unlocked exclusively by the Teams format, for the same reason that certain factions can be selected that wouldn't really work in a singles environment either, because those factions are able to weaponize certain table layouts or avoid certain matchups. They're able to bring things that you otherwise wouldn't be able to bring to a singles event, because they're going to get preyed on by those armies that are at the very top of the meta. So this is one of the ways that teams events really does give you a ton more freedom to explore your faction really dig into it and try out some different crazy ideas that will be laughed off the tables in a single event. But because in teams, you get a little bit more agency, you get a little bit more control, you can do some crazy stuff. So that's one of the other reasons that team events are absolutely fantastic. It's not just what Teams 40K does for you during the event and how it impacts faction selection and how it impacts your army, but there's some other really amazing things about what Warhammer 40K in the Teams environment does for you as a player. When I started out playing Warhammer 40K competitively, I was actually quite rubbish. And there was a period early on in my development where one of the local teams needed an extra player for the state team championships, and they asked me to step in. I'd gotten friendly with them. They knew I wasn't particularly good, but they needed an 8th player for their team. And the interesting dynamic here was we now had 7 players that were invested in my personal development. These players taught me all of the different tips and tricks and strategies that you need to know to be good at competitive 40K. And not only did they explain them to me, but they gave me the reps. They showed me physically how it works, and they walked through every element from list design to overall strategy, and they taught me everything that I needed to know. And that sort of mentor-mentee style dynamic, you just don't see it in singles events. Sure, you get gaming clubs that all want each other to succeed, but they also kind of want to beat each other, and they also kind of want to place higher than each other. So you get a little bit less of that team bonding experience where the people are working together to make sure that everybody succeeds. And you get a little bit more of that almost sibling rivalry within clubs and genuine rivalry between clubs. So that's one of the things about Teams 40K that I think goes underappreciated and underestimated, is what it does for the community, because I have then gone off and started my own teams and worked with those people and shared that knowledge that was passed down to me. And you get this sort of almost evolution of a community and of a culture that's about propping each other up and helping each other be the best versions of ourselves. And I think that is largely, not exclusively, but it is largely facilitated by Teams events. Alrighty guys, here I am at the Parthenon on top of the Acropolis in ancient Greece, and I thought what better place and what better time than to talk a little bit about my leadership philosophy going into the WTC of 2025. So this year, one of the main driving philosophies of all of my leadership decisions was that of a laissez-faire leadership style. I've done a little bit of formal leadership training, not a ton, but basically the way I see it is there's essentially 4 main schools of leadership. You can have autocratic, which is like barking orders at people, telling them what to do. This is really good when you have people who don't really know what they're doing, or if you're in a situation that demands an emergency response, but that doesn't really apply here. There's the bureaucratic leadership style, which is where you basically create processes and procedures and defer to them regularly. I don't think that really applies here. There's the democratic process, where everything falls down to democratic vote. I don't necessarily think that's an appropriate one to make here, because I don't think that people should be forced into decisions on their lists or faction decisions or any of that sort of stuff based on like some kind of vote, which really just leaves one leadership style, which is laissez-faire. And the idea behind laissez-faire is that you are essentially getting the best people and then empowering them to make whatever decisions they need. A real like bottom-up leadership style, where basically they're free to do whatever they want, and if they require any assistance, that's when they would reach out to me and be like, oh Dean, here's what we need, here's what we want to do, can you advise on this? And I would be there to provide that leadership when needed, but primarily I wanted them to have maximum freedom to make the decisions that they did, choose their factions, write their lists, all of that sort of stuff. And that worked really, really well for us. We had some people making last minute changes. We had some people making questionable decisions with their lists, but they backed themselves. And yeah, that laissez-faire leadership style it truly empowered people to make those last minute changes, to make those decisions and feel emboldened. And then on the day, we realized that there's a reason that they wanted to make those decisions. And you have to trust your players when you're getting the 8 best players in the country together, some of them world champion players. Like, who am I to tell them what this to run? Who is anybody else to tell them what this to run? You know, you have to trust them, you have to back them, you have to provide them with the support, both in terms of like what do they need, but also like, you know, if they're asking for things, make sure you provide it, but also trying to find the things that they need that they aren't even asking for. You know, and sometimes that's just a bit of a confidence boost and saying, you know what, we trust you, you can run this list, you know, explore it, do your thing. And sometimes it's also getting them to verify and show why it is that the things that they're talking about being amazing are. Get those practice games in, you know, encourage them to explore further. And that really worked well for Team Australia this year, and it's a leadership philosophy that I take, you know, great pride in executing. So it's hard for a lot of people, because when you're in that position where you do have leadership over a group of people, it is always tempting to be like, no, what you're doing is wrong, like do this, you know. It's very tempting to do that, especially when you don't fully understand why they want to do the things they want to do. But I genuinely believe that it's one of the largest contributing factors to our success was the fact that I did take that back seat and give my players that freedom. I did take a slightly different approach with the leadership when it came to the coaches. I made sure that I was on top of them and made sure that they were responding rapidly to my requests, and I performed a little bit more of an autocratic leadership style with them. And that's one of the key things about leadership philosophy, is knowing which types of leadership to deploy at which times, with which people, in which circumstances. It can be quite challenging being a leader. I also used a very democratic leadership style when it came to things like how we spent and what we did with team raising funds, like fundraising, and things like, you know, what we were going to do in those areas. That was a very democratic process, because that's something that impacts everybody and everybody has equal, you know, claim to. So there's no, I'm not saying that there's no place for democratic leadership within 40k teams, and I'm not saying there's no place for bureaucratic leadership for that matter. It's just knowing which leadership style to deploy and when. And that's one of the challenges leaders face all the time, is am I applying the right leadership style for this situation, or would a different leadership style be more suitable for this situation? And I think I did that pretty well this year. But even just being conscious of the different leadership styles and using them differently is already a huge step in the right direction. So if any of you are out there wanting to lead a team yourself, just bear that in mind, is that there are those different styles and you need to apply them differently. Sometimes there might be one individual on your team that requires a really strong autocratic approach, and while the rest of the team you can apply more laissez-faire. And understanding how to apply different standards to different people and how to communicate that with them is also one of the big challenges that leaders face. But all in all, very happy with my leadership philosophy this year. Speaking of leadership and Team Australia, a lot of people have been asking me already, even though the event's only been over for a couple of days, they're already asking me if I'm going to stay on as captain again for 2026. And the simple answer to that question is I do not know. Team Australia has a process where basically it's very loosely defined, but basically, you know, after the event's concluded, the captain can hold an election to, you know, elect the captain for the next year, and all of the outgoing players get to vote on that. And the reason that we have it internal to the team as opposed to external is because only the team that attended this year really witnessed my captaincy. So only really they can judge whether or not I was an appropriate captain or not. You could argue that the broader Australian community should get a say, because perhaps, you know, I did some stuff that the rest of the country, you know, don't approve of, or perhaps I could be being selfish and just electing my mates that can then continue to re-elect me, and then I re-elect my mates as players. There's potential for that sort of thing to happen as well. I'm a strong believer that that's never going to happen though, because the mandate of the captain is to try to win the event, right? So I'm not going to bring my mates who are shit at 40k. I'm only going to bring the best players that I possibly can. And then their mandate is also to win the event. So they're going to elect a captain that they think is going to help contribute towards that goal. So I think it is the best system. And then they're also going to see everything that their captain does. They're going to see how much work I do behind the scenes, or whoever replaces me or whoever preceded me. They see how much work is done behind the scenes, and therefore they are optimally positioned to cast a realistic vote on whether or not the captain is appropriate or not. So essentially at some point I'll be putting up an election. I just need to decide if I want to put my hand up and do it again. And if I do, I have no doubt that I will be re-elected, because the team were very appreciative of all the work I did this year. However, I'm still undecided on whether or not I want to do that. And I think it's fair to give me a month or so to just unpack everything, because it is a ridiculous amount of work, a ton of stress, a ton of pressure to perform, and it's not entirely enjoyable. Like the post-event stuff is fine, and during the day on the event is fine, but the amount of work that goes into the lead up to the event, the amount of challenges that you have to solve is bordering on infinite, and it's really, really hard. And I think it's one of those things kind of like being a parent, where it's really easy to be a bad one, but to be a good one is very, very hard. I think the same thing could be said for being a captain. Anybody can be the captain, like you tick the box, you're a captain now, right? Anyone can be one. But to be a good one, it takes everything off you. And with me juggling my YouTube channel and my Victorian captaincy and my Australian captaincy, and then things going on in my personal life, it's just a lot. It's a lot. So I'm unsure on whether or not I want to continue. However, when I make that decision, I will then take steps based on the Australian Charter on what happens there. If I decide not to, I will basically have to reach out to the team and the broader community and say, does anybody else want to be captain? And then however many people put their hands up, I will then oversee an election. So we can sort of figure out who will be taking the reins going forward and what their mandate is going to be and what their leadership style is going to be. There's a few people out there that I could think off the top of my head that would be very suitable for the role. So I don't think there's going to be a problem. I don't think Australia is going to see a dearth of leadership. We've got plenty of very talented leaders in our community. So I think Australia, regardless of whether I'm at the helm or whether it's somebody else, I think Australia in 2026 is going to be a force to be reckoned with. So yeah, that's sort of where we're at with that. I think I'll have a more accurate update on what my plans are for 2026 within the next 2 months maybe. I've also got a few things to work out at home, so I can't make any decisions yet. And one of the privileged positions of being the captain is I get to choose when that election takes place. Now, obviously, I want it to take place sooner rather than later, because whoever is going to take the reins for 2026 is going to require as much time as possible to make sure that they're able to implement any changes they want to make, and also make sure that their plans are able to form and they can sort of get started, because there's a lot to do. WTC isn't just the August event. The amount of work that goes in between the time that the captain is elected and the event itself is immense. So just some of the things that I did in the lead up to. So after being elected as captain, I'm not going to be able to remember all of it because it was just so much, but after being elected, I immediately started searching for sponsorship partners. I immediately started the process of getting dice manufactured. I immediately started getting our shirts and our swag, these shirts here made. All of these things take a lot of time. And one of the challenges with Team Australia is because we're so far away, we need to select our team earlier than other people so that they can start coordinating annual leave, so they can start coordinating flights, because we can't just take a train down for the weekend, attend the tournament, and then fuck off, right? We have to book flights to fucking the other side of the world. Most people tack on an additional trip like what I'm doing here in Athens, so there's a lot that goes into it. So we need to basically announce our team earlier than others, which means we need to start the whole process earlier than other teams would. Jesus, that's windy. That's what happens when you're on the top of a fucking mountain. But yeah, so I do want to get the ball rolling as soon as possible, so I'm not delaying for any unnecessary reasons, and I am going to be putting a lot of pressure on myself to come to a conclusion on what we're going to do for Team Australia going forward as soon as possible, and I will update you guys on here when I do. But for now, just rest assured that Team Australia is currently in good hands, and I will not hand it over to somebody if I feel that they are not going to represent Australia in good faith and put forward our strongest possible front. And I know a few people that can do that, and I have no doubts that 2026 is going to be a good year for Team Australia. One of the consistent themes across all of ancient Athens is gods, right? There's temples built to gods, there's statues, there's monuments, and it got me thinking a little bit about, you know, my sort of position on religion, and I thought I'd share that with you guys now because it sort of pertains to the event as well, and also just might be interesting. So I'm not a particularly religious guy. I don't follow any religions, wasn't raised religious. However, I would probably describe myself as like deeply open-minded and agnostic, because I think that we evolved our senses to perceive this physical reality, and that includes things like our way of doing formal logic was sort of built around understanding this physical reality. So naturally, I don't think any of those things can explain the supernatural. So it's entirely possible, as far as I'm concerned, for there to be something out there that exists that is based on our current understanding of rationality and physics and our sense data is impossible. You know, I think it's entirely possible that that's the case. And I think that you can see that in human behavior a lot. Now, this could just be a consequence of human psychology, but I find it interesting that when you're like, you really need to roll that successful charge, right? You kind of pray, right? Like you go, oh, fuck, please pass this save. Who are you fucking talking to? You know, what are you doing? You know, it's kind of a form of prayer. And, you know, when you celebrate, you know, I don't know, I just think that you can't fully separate the two. And I think any attempts to do so sort of, you know, they hurt the human experience. I think the human experience is much richer if you allow for that to be a possibility. You know, that there is some kind of force that unites us all, that also gives us access to deeper levels of understanding of reality and allows us to sort of, you know, like maybe it does influence. Maybe there is an influential structure to the world. I know one thing for sure is that the more positive mindset you have, the more positivity you will perceive, and therefore the better you'll think life is, and therefore the more positive the mindset you'll have. So we've all got those people that you've played against where like they complain about their dice rolls. They're just like, I rolled nothing but things, or he passed, you know, all of his 4-up invulnerable saves. And almost every time, I guarantee you, if you look back through that game, there was just as much things went in their favor as in their opponent's favor, you know? And the amount of times that my opponents have complained when I've passed like 65% of my 3-up armor saves, and it's like, I'm supposed to. Like, what are you talking about? But the problem is when I roll the dice, they look down and they see all of these 3-ups and they get triggered. Whereas when I look down, I see all the 1s and the 2s and I get triggered, you know? Like, it's a perspectives thing. And I think that the way that this ties into the whole concept of gods and religions is that if you have this mindset that there is some supernatural force, that if you do good, it will reward you, well, then what happens is as you start doing good, you start having that positive mindset, you start perceiving rewards, you start seeing when you pass all your saves and you go, that's my reward, you know, and you're humbled by it, you're more appreciative. And one of the things from this trip that's really highlighted to me, because there was tons of drama, tons of challenges, as you would expect at this level of the competition, but at the end of it, I persevered through it, I pushed through, I made sure that I was always doing what I believed was the right thing to do for my team, not necessarily the thing that I want to do, the thing that's right for the team. And as a result, we ended up getting a better placing than last year. We ended up outperforming ourselves and really, really solidifying Team Australia as one of the top tier nations. And that to me is an immense reward for all of the hard work that I did and all of the sacrifices that I made. You know, that's another real strong theme throughout Athens, is this theme of sacrifice. Like, the amount of sacrifice that went into building this temple behind me is insane. Like, there people would have sacrificed half, if not their entire life, to just building one of these fucking pillars, right? Like, but they did it and they felt reward because they were doing it in the service of gods. Whereas if they were doing it because of money, right? Well, no amount of money can dedicate your entire life to building a fucking column, right? Not when there's fucking however many 20 odd columns on that fucking thing. Like, you know, like, it requires, in order to get true next level performance, you know, and truly step it up, you require something beyond the material. You require something beyond the immediate. You require some kind of, you know, supernatural. And that's how they're able to get these things built. It's not built by slaves. I mean, I'm sure they had slaves. I'm sure slaves helped. But you wouldn't, if you had 1 billion slaves and all you wanted to do was build an awesome thing for yourself, you wouldn't build this, you know. This was built for the gods, you know. These things were like, the Parthenon was built for the gods. And that sort of marvelous creation is only possible through that extreme sacrifice to the divine. And I think that whether or not you believe that it is a literal truth, and whether or not you believe the Christianity or fucking Islam or fucking maybe you believe in Zeus, I don't fucking know, doesn't really matter at the end of the day. As far as I'm concerned, just accepting that it's possible, that there is something else, is enough. You don't have to follow a specific doctrine. You don't have to perform any specific rituals or anything like that. Just going, you know what, it's entirely possible that out there is something else, something divine, something, you know, supernatural. And if you allow that possibility and then you go, okay, well, I'm going to do whatever I believe to be the right thing by that, you know, maybe it's just by your fellow man, who knows, that can give you the inspiration and the motivation to do epic things, like put together a team of some of the most volatile personalities in Australian 40K and make them work together. It's fucking an immense task. I'd almost rather try to build one of these cunts than try to manage these people again. But you know, like, that's an immense task and it's achievable by that. And on top of that, you've got, you know, holding that team together is really hard work, but sacrificing the present for payoff in the future is essentially one of the lessons of most religions. And following that, even though you may not be following a specific religion, following those sorts of religious concepts helped me get through this trip and helped me enjoy this trip and prevented me from having any, like, you know, mental breakdowns over all the stress and all the pressure that was built up around me. So even though I don't have a specific God that I follow and I don't have a specific religion that I follow, you know, I am immensely thankful for what those religious concepts have been able to provide for me in the terms of inspiration and motivation, you know, to be that self-sacrifice. And you'll notice that almost all religions point in the same kind of direction, you know. They all talk about things like self-sacrifice, they all talk about things like eternity, they all talk about things like subjugation to a divine. Now, you could be the skeptic, and you could definitely make the case that the reason that they do that is because they want to create like a cattle class of people that they can control. And sure, maybe, but I think it's deeper than that. And I think what's actually happening is that there is some kind of divine, there is some kind of supernatural force out there. We just don't have direct access to it because we haven't evolved to have that access. We've evolved to identify fruit and animals and eat them and then fuck women. That's what we've evolved to do, you know? And all of this stuff on top is very, very hard to identify the truth value of it, but that doesn't make it false. Just because you can't identify the truth value of something does not make it false. And I highly doubt any of the existing religions got it right. But I also think that at the very least, they are all pointing to the same direction, and that direction is one that is true. And that is that you should be self-sacrificial, both in like temporarily, like, you know, sacrifice from now for the future, but also sacrificing from yourself for others. You know, the sacrifices that I put in to make sure that everybody on Team Australia had an enjoyable trip, those are the sorts of self-sacrifices that I think are immensely rewarding in the end. They may feel horrible and painful at the time, but at the end of the trip, you look back on it and you're like, I'm glad I did all of those things. That was the right thing to do, and I'm now at peace. And whereas if I didn't do that, if I shirked my responsibility, my duty to my team, I wouldn't feel the same. So that's sort of where I sit on the whole gods thing. Maybe there is a fucking, you know, a multiplicity of gods, you know, maybe, who knows? You know, these cunts thought there was, and they were able to do shit like that. So maybe they were right, maybe they were onto something. I spent a lot of time in this video talking about the strengths of Teams 40K, but there is one drawback, and it is intrinsically linked with ancient Greece, and that is politics. So, you know, any national competition, any game at this level, you'll find that there's going to be politics involved. And by politics, I'm referring to, like, you know, there were certain people that feel that I was unworthy of the captain's position. There were certain people that really wanted that position for themselves. There were certain people that wanted particular members of their community to be represented on the team. There were certain people that didn't want particular people that I had selected to be represented on the team. That's always going to be the case when you get to something that's this prestigious. You're always going to end up with, you know, a lot of people jostling for positions of power, and typically speaking, the people who want the power are the least deserving of it. And typically speaking, you know, people are acting in their self-interest, you know, they're not acting in the interest of the team. And one of the reasons that I actually took the position again this year after having held it last year was because I genuinely feel in my soul that I am doing this for the best of the team and the best of the country. I'm not trying to do this because I want some kind of glory, which is one of the reasons why I stepped down as a player and gave my player position to somebody else, because I'm not trying to do this to stroke my own ego or to, you know, have some kind of legacy or anything like that. I just believed that at the time when I took captaincy, there was a lot of people jostling for positions of power within Australia, and I didn't want that to negatively impact our representation on the world stage. So I knew that there was, you know, a lot of ways that this could go badly, but I felt that I had a decent shot at reuniting a lot of Australia and putting forward our best foot, and I feel like I did a pretty good job of that considering the circumstances. And even if I'm not involved with Team Australia next year, I will be, you know, involved in that part of it, you know, so making sure that it does still put forward our strongest, you know, team, and making sure that anyone who is just vying for political power is as restricted as possible in their aspirations of doing so, because nothing kills a team or a fucking ancient civilization faster than corrupt politics. So that's something that I'm very conscious of, very aware of,
put in a lot of effort this year to make sure that that wasn't a problem for us, and I will continue to do so. It sounds worse than it is, you know. At the end of the day, it's ultimately just a bunch of blokes playing war dollies, and you know, there's not much that can really come of it more than that, but it can be quite frustrating and challenging to navigate. But I think I did a pretty good job of it, and I look forward to continuing to do so going forward. G'day guys, here we are at Fantasy Shop in Athens, the #1 spot for 40k in Greece. Let's jump inside and have a look around.
When you enter the Fantasy Shop, you're met with a huge range of collectibles, pop vinyls, a nice little playing area for 40k, as well as a huge range of Joy Toy action figures. I couldn't resist but pull out all of the World Eaters ones and pick one up for myself as a souvenir. They also have a very large range of hobby supplies, including painting materials, basing materials, and airbrush equipment for those looking to get into airbrushing. Their 40k selection is also massive, with tons of boxes of every kit imaginable, and then they have this nice little display case that showcases some older editions of Warhammer 40k, including an old school Land Raider and some really funky looking old school Tyranids. The Fantasy Shop is more than just a store, however. If you take a walk up this little spiral staircase, you're treated to a gaming space that has a bunch of tables, would be great for practice games, or maybe even hosting a small tournament. Fantasy Shop also has miniatures for all kinds of miniatures games, so if you want to pick up some minis to convert for 40k, or whether you're looking to play a game of Infinity, or Halo, or Dungeons & Dragons, either way, Fantasy Shop has you covered with a huge range of alternative game systems.
This is actually my second time traveling through Athens. However, this time I'm going as a war gamer, not as a newlywed. So I thought, what better opportunity than to check out the Miniture Greece Museum. The Miniture Greece Museum has some truly stunning miniaturized versions of ancient Greek cities, contemporary Greek monuments, tons of really, really cool stuff. And as a war gamer, how can you look past a castle like that? Like, it's truly mind-blowing, the stuff that they've been able to build in this place. And it's inspired me, the second I get home, to start working on some more creative tables. Because if they can pull this stuff off, I see no reason that I need to play on a gaming mat with some L-shaped ruins. Like, surely we can do something a little better.